Hello and welcome to the AstroPub, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Paul Berserker01, Batman Shelley, your humble host and space bartender at the AstroPub, your space bar at the end of the universe. And this is the Captain's Table. This is where I bring people from all over the Star Citizen community to talk about Star Citizen. Nazareth, did I get your name right? I feel like I misspelled your name. Okay, good.
N-A-Z-E-R, yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we did it.
Yeah. And now to remind me next time Darj is on to intentionally misspell his name.
Got it.
Because it's a joke now. Anywho, with this, I brought on 3 veterans of Captain's Table, as well as 3 veterans of the Star Citizen community. Between the 4 of us, there is many, many years of pointless, stupid information that nobody actually needs to remember, not even CIG themselves, but we do, because that's just what we do.
It's a problem.
It is a problem. I call it my brain disease, and I think it's the best way of putting it. So we're going to share our brain disease with you, so that you all can also have this information, and hopefully sticks in your brain for a very long time and never leaves it.
What do you mean Kruger's not a spaceship manufacturer and they bought out space to make the Constellation a snub fighter?
So much.
And Tree's gone.
So much.
I touched something I shouldn't have touched. Sorry.
Anywho, with that all being said, let's introduce the folks here. I want to start with you, Naz. Who are you? What do you do in Star Citizen, and where can they find you?
So I am Nazareth. I run the No Forge. There we go. I remember the name. Both the YouTube channel and the Star Citizen org. Most of my content right now is playing the game, but every other Tuesday, hopefully, is Pathfinder's podcast, which I started with Tree. So while Tree's being busy, I'm gonna try and run it solo, and hopefully, eventually, have enough time to actually set up some other guests that can come with their own topics. I also run, like I said, the No Forge organization, or No Forge Industries, and we do economy stuff, and we do at least one event every Monday, with many more probably throughout the week. So yeah, No Forge, the No Forge on YouTube and Twitch, and then No Forge Industries on Star Citizen Organizations.
Awesome. And what was it you say? What is the Pathfinders podcast? Because the way I've always described it is like if you liked the Captain's Table, but you thought it was too short, you should.
Instead of like having nice, simple topics and things that you like, what's this question? Talk on it for 2 minutes and then move on. It's like, what's this question? Spend 5 hours.
Yeah. One topic. Like I know there was one on server meshing, which is one of the reasons why I asked Tree and you to come on. Like y'all did one on server meshing before CIG had even like showed off server meshing. Yeah. And I think it was legitimately like 5 hours.
Yeah, the one thing where I really like that we do on Pathfinders is we don't just give you. We basically do what this last IC was: is the history, the now, the plan.
Mm-hmm.
It is the whole thing. So I think it's really good. One of the best episodes we did was still like one of the first ones where Tree made this giant spreadsheet of inconsistencies with the star system sizes, and he just poured through all of them, and we talked through where they are at, why they might change, and that's the kind of crap we do. We make spreadsheets and talk through things.
This is what I mean by like
citations.
And citations. Always format. Cite your sources.
Yes, yeah. It's one of those things.
Up or shut up.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I mean by brain disease. Like Tree is the only reason why I know that the star map has actually been updated. Because Tree has gone back and looked at the stats and then tracked the stats and been like, they've secretly been editing the star map and not telling anybody that they've edited the star map to update information, but they haven't done it consistently. So
it is a brain disease because before we got started with all this, I had hair like Nazareth.
I actually realized I accidentally did hair and bald squad like right now.
Make sure to get it cut just today for this show.
Yeah.
I'm loving the shine you got.
Oh yeah, dude, it's good.
It's great.
It's nice. Yeah, it's a nice.
The regimen Honey's got you on is phenomenal.
The skin, dude, smooth skin.
This is just for all of you who are also in your 30s or older, like a lot of us here on the Captain's Table. Do not ever think that skincare is stupid. Skincare will make it so that you're not feeling at all You'll feel so much better in your 30s and 40s if you take care of your skin in your 20s and teens. And it's not even something fancy, just like, lotion. Just take care of it,
A little bit of niacinamide too.
Yeah.
Goes a long way.
And if you got a
Even
beard,
basic,
put some
just
oil in it.
washing
Make it smell.
properly your
Yeah.
skin. Like
What?
it's
Water?
Water? That people drown in water, Nazareth. Water rusts things.
I know the statistics. 100% of people who drink water die. I know.
Deadly in certain concentrations.
Have you guys ever seen anyone talk about the signs that like no swimming, like sinking water or something?
I haven't, but we're already getting off track.
Oh.
Tree,
Oh, those are terrifying.
who are you? What do you do in Star Citizen, and where can they find you?
Hi, I'm Trio311. Nazareth and I do the Pathfinders podcast, and like I said, it's we really just follow the development of Star Citizen Squadron 42 in detail, and so we really enjoy doing the deep dives. We've done deep dives on server meshing, on quantum, on things like engineering and other gameplay mechanics and things like that. But then we also regularly follow the monthly reports and the updates to the roadmap, and eventually we'll be covering the progress tracker once it gets updated again. But in the meantime, we enjoy following the development. It's a hobby. It's hosted on my channel over on Twitch and then uploaded to YouTube. Everything is Tree0311. And just so everybody knows, I keep no monetization for myself. Everything gets donated in its entirety to stackup.org. It's a veterans charity. So if you're interested in that, check it out. Haven't done a Armchair Admirals and Generals podcast in a long time, just because I've been stupid busy. Hopefully I don't look too haggard right now, because I've got 5.5-week-old twins on top of the 2.5-year-old toddler. So
I was gonna say, like, how are the twins doing? I'm sure they're doing healthy, but I'm sure that it's a chore to deal with too.
Yep. Yeah, it's
Still less work than the progress tracker, though.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. Jake is probably 30 going on 50 because of all that right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, everybody's good. Everybody's healthy. I'm still on paternity leave for another like 10 days, but I don't know how I'm going to go back to work. Yeah, it's good though. I mean, it could definitely be worse. They're already sleeping 3-hour stretches, so we're good here in the House of Tree, and hopefully we're pretty much settling into a routine. So I think we'll be able to resume.
It's good.
I'll be able to join Naz on the podcast again soon.
And I say I do like the new office. I'm glad that you have an office, and it looks snazzy and everything. So.
Oh, I wish I could get more of it in camera, because I put a lot of work into this over the last several months, and cheers, props to Victura for the painting up behind me. But I've got my Star Citizen stuff here. I've got all my other model ships over there from different IPs, so it's sufficiently nerdy. I've got my Lego over on that wall, and my leather-bound books, smelling rich mahogany. Yeah.
Nice. And speaking of new houses, Space Tomato, who are you? What do you do in Star Citizen? And how is your new house?
Yes, thank you. First, congrats to you, Tree. I don't think we've talked since the kids came along, and that's awesome, dude. I imagine you got your hands
I've
full.
hardly talked to anyone but my wife, so
yeah. and the babies going back and forth. No, but good to be on another show with you and Ness. Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
Good to be on a show with you and Ness. Thanks for having me on, Pub. I make Star Citizen videos as well. The few channels for that. Mainly, I'm on YouTube, but I also stream on Twitch. But the main channel, Space Tomato, is it's Tomato Talks, which are like a lot of kind of context and development news and big updates. And then I've started doing a feature watch series recently, which is kind of just like picking and choosing something that I like from the recent week and talking a little more about the history of it. Second channel, Space Tomato 2, is more long form content. Like I got a couple podcasts that are kind of like this, Launch Sequence and Citizen Central. And then I've got a gameplay channel, and me and Mrs. Tomato actually started a channel called The Tomatoes, which is kind of more real life oriented and kind of the stuff that's going on as we transition back and forth between her home country of Turkey and mine of America. And we just released a video, like you mentioned there, moving into this new house, which was an episode of our life. Jesus, moving is not
It
simple.
sucks. It sucks.
Yeah,
Moving
it
into a new
was-
house sucks. I had, when I moved into this house, my wife and I both collectively said we literally cannot move anymore. I need to. This is not. This is not. Can't. I am. This is the last move I am doing until I am an ancient person with kids who can help me with moving, because this is awful.
Yeah.
I have a
We had to
weird
move into
question
this
for
house
everyone.
Yeah.
because of the kids, and I
What-
keep
what-
telling my wife, "I'll move. I'll die in this house." I'm never moving again.
What is the longest anyone has been in a single house?
Well, I lived
Outside
in.
of childhood.
Oh, okay. Well, that's different.
Like throughout your entire life?
Other than childhood, because it's even childhood
Well,
I mean,
5 years.
I lived with my parents in a house
for like 18 years.
15 years. Yeah,
Yeah.
but no. Besides that,
not even
not very much.
16.
Over here in Turkey, our first house ended up underwater. Our
Literally.
second house got hit by like a hurricane kind of place that was falling apart, and then we kind of rushed into this place. But we plan on keeping this place for a long time. This is land that her dad has had for like 40 something years, and it's out here perched on like the side of a cliff. We got a nice view of the sea, and it's good. It's just
Maybe don't jinx yourself if you're going to talk about it being on the side of a
Yeah,
cliff.
dude.
And
Yeah.
you wanting to be
Knock.
living in there for a long time.
we've all read the series of unfortunate events, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I
House on the
will-
side of the cliff.
I will not even think about it.
All I can say is it's impressive, because I know, Tomato, you've had to move back and forth from the U.S. to Turkey, like, I don't know how many times since I've known you. It's been at least twice a year or something like that.
Yeah,
And not
yeah,
just
it's generally
not
twice
just
a
the
year.
U.S., the West Coast. You
Yeah.
go to the wrong side.
It's like the opposite part of the world.
Like
we look
literally
on the globe,
like just on the literally the other side, 12-hour difference sort of thing.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
You're on the opposite side of the flat Earth. Yeah.
it's a lot, but we're very grateful to be moved in here, and Mrs. Tomato has like constructed a beautiful studio, which I've never gotten to fully have built out, and we're just happy to be in a place stable.
Nice. All right. Now that we've had a nice little kind of personal introductions and everything like that, I just realized that because Tree just moved into a new house and you just moved into a new house, so me and Naz have been in the same place for a while, I guess. Now this is my
We've been here
fifth
for
year.
6 years.
Yeah, this is my 5th year here in my my new house. But but with that
Is that
all being said,
In
go ahead.
Pyro?
Yeah, in Pyro,
Nice.
been 6 years.
Rough neighborhood.
Yeah, good. I've got
Screw with
good
people.
neighbors.
They leave you alone.
Yeah, they got good neighbors. Just ignore Frank. He's got the skull on his shoulder. Don't ask about the skull. He gets really upset about you if you ask about his skull shoulder. But other than that, he's great.
His HOA is absolutely wild.
Yeah.
He comes around asking for taxes every week, but there are no taxes in Pyro, so it's weird, but you just keep going with it.
Yeah, but he makes a mean noodle. His noodles are great. His bakery has movable things that move when they're baked, but don't ask too many questions about the things that move. They taste great. They're great. Just don't think about it.
It's
Yeah.
just yeast. Don't worry.
Just very, very active yeast. And then every Friday you go out to the solar flare where the fire rats do their ritual celebration of the sun by sacrificing a goat, and then they barbecue it afterwards. You just have to make sure you wear enough SPF 1000 and you're fine.
Love a block party.
Ace Goats win CIG.
All right. With that all being said, let's start talking about server meshing. And because Space Tomato was the last one to introduce themselves, I'm going to ask you the very basic question, in the sense that because server meshing, we can say server meshing, but what is server meshing in like the basic sense to like if somebody doesn't know what it actually is, what is server meshing when it comes to Star Citizen?
You said it was easy.
This is the basic. This is the
I mean,
basic.
okay, it's server meshing's basically just simultaneously loading a new server without a loading screen. Like it's transitioning to another server without having to go through any sort of process other than moving.
So it's just like seamless transitions between two different servers.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So, Tree, what's a shard?
Oh man,
I
now I
get-
got to do the real answer, not
Yes.
the dad joke.
Yeah. That one's easier. That one's harder.
My son had a shard just an hour ago.
All right, no, that's Sherd. I'm thinking of Sherd with the pottery.
A shard would be the collection of all the things that CIG needs to run a single instance of the entire game universe. So the servers, the background services, and everything in between, along with the connected clients. That would be a shard.
Okay. So when we're talking about, and I'll ask you, Naz, this one, when we're talking about server meshing, being able to transition seamlessly from one server to another, and a shard, which is all of those servers and backend client stuff together to make the game run. How is this important when it comes to Star Citizen as a game? Like, why does this matter? Why should people care about server meshing as it exists? Because like server meshing isn't gameplay, right? It's just back-end stuff. So why does this matter?
Well, for one, it's tantamount to the experience, and it's more of a modern shift in the entire industry. And I'm going to be a little more ambiguous about this one, because like Minecraft, I think, really kicked it off. Millions, like 30 million blocks in any direction, go, no load screens. Doesn't matter how many blocks you place, doesn't matter what's going on in the world, no load screens. No Man's Sky is the same way. There are hidden load screens, and you can really find the transitions, but it's not there. And this is a shift away from very arcadey games, something like Skyrim, where it's walk 3 feet load screen, walk 3 feet load screen, and it's a quality of life thing. It's a technology that is not used a lot in a lot of places. MMOs have done it before, but a lot of them also do have that fade to black, then fade back out as you transition to different regions. Some have done a little bit more hidden load screens. A lot of newer Sony titles also do hidden load screens where your character will like shimmy through a cave, and it gets the field of view will get real tight. It's that kind of a system. It's more of a modern way of doing games, just on a scale that no one's tried before, especially with these, you can be anywhere in space and find a transition point and go across it. And it enables not just seamless game space, but thousands of players to be in the same area, fighting a giant space battle, or thousands of NPCs and players in a single landing zone without billions of kilometers away, the server having to keep track of it. So it makes the game space not only be able to be wider with being able to see across borders, but also be able to be denser.
Okay. And I do want to emphasize this as well, because this is one of the things that I think a lot of people will point out, because this is something we hear a lot, which is server meshing is not new technology. Server meshing has been around for a very long time. And even there are elements of server meshing that Star Citizen does, which have been done with other games. But I want to emphasize this because it's one of those things a lot of people don't realize. No game works the same way.
Yeah.
Every game has to build out a brand new solution to their net programming when it comes to server and stuff like that.
It's the same kind of thing that, like, server meshing has existed, like somebody said, from Ultima Online 1998. The same way rasterization has existed since, I believe, the first wireframe game was an Elite title.
Yeah.
Where they had wireframe ships.
I don't know if that was the first wireframe game, but it was definitely one of the first space games that was wireframe, that used that sort of thing.
It was definitely in the first kind of batch of them. But every game has to build their own models. You can't just take, Final Fantasy assets and say, well, I'm building a space game. They're not going to work because they're just different assets.
Mm-hmm.
Same way every server technology for an MMO needs to be built from the ground up for that game, for that experience they want. Like, that's why most companies build their own engines, because they have requirements that aren't on the general market.
Yeah.
Because you can't make an engine for everyone, much like you can't make a game for everyone.
Yeah. And there's also different like requirements, like stuff that works for Elder Scrolls Online, for instance, wouldn't work for Eve, because the way that assets are loaded and the way that priority, who has priority and how things move are completely different. And as much as we wish there was standardization in a lot of things like games to make it easier for you to be like, oh, I can figure out exactly what's happening, there is very little standardization in gaming space. Like, what is an alpha to one company is not an alpha to another company. So like even the naming isn't the same, and how they organize their teams isn't the same. There are some similar stuff with things like agile and
like even down to like positions, it's not the same.
So, but it's just super different. So it's hard to like use everybody else. So it's not really helpful to go like, oh, well, X game has this, why don't you have that? It's because X game built that from the ground up, rather than like taking an off the shelf asset and plugging it in, because it wouldn't necessarily work for every games. So
I like a friend of mine, credit to Panic Switch, said at one point that server meshing felt kind of like the just next generation of loading screens, in the sense that it's not like you're saying, it's not a standard. It's not the same exact thing in every single way. It's something that people will figure out how to utilize for how they need to load their game seamlessly in the future.
Yeah, because
now just go back and watch the trailers and the publicity for the PS4. It's what they said we were going to get with the PS4.
Well, it's what they did with Massive Action Game, MAG. I think MAG was
holy crap, that's a throwback.
Yeah. Y'all
wow,
remember
I haven't
that?
heard that in a long time.
I just remember
Yellow
the name
Dart
of it.
Bubs on YouTube.
What's that?
I would love to know. Yellow Dart Bubs on YouTube is comment. Do you guys believe they'll get it working? This is the third attempt since 2019 trying to make server meshing working. They failed
put that
twice.
in the questions Q&A thing.
What?
Well, go ahead and illustrate it, because that is a good question. Because there has been even before we went live, there were people who were saying that like their CRG was secretly the reason why they're implementing the system for jump points, where you have to queue up with the ATC, was secretly because CIG fails at server meshing, and so they have to find a way to queue up people to join a server, and this is all just a secret behind the scenes way of CIG implementing server meshing while having this problem. So it's clear that there is a lot of misinformation about how server meshing even functions. So why?
I just want to know when they've failed twice and how this is the third attempt. iCache didn't cut the mustard, but they didn't make it to the server meshing part with iCache. iCache was replaced with PES, and PES is what has allowed them to build onto server meshing. But there's no third attempt at server meshing or second attempt or anything like that. It's an iterative process to build up to it to get to server meshing. This is static server meshing, then they'll go to dynamic. But there's no such thing as this being the third attempt, and they failed multiple times.
They were probably beating their head against the problem, and you could technically call different things failures, but it's just problem solving to get it to work, right?
That's how it works. Yeah. Right? I mean, that's
development.
You have a background in engineering, I know, Space Tomato. So like like how many, like a lot of, especially when engineering. I come from a family of engineers, so I know this whole like. The whole, you fail more times than you succeed when you do anything, because you have to learn how something works. And if you don't know how it works, like you often, if you're doing something brand new that no one's done before, you're going to fail a lot because no one's done it before, and you have to figure out what doesn't work.
Trust
I think
research and development is hard.
Yeah, I think a really good resource for seeing where everything is and what they've been doing for it is the unofficial roadmap to server meshing by Anoptanium. Like he's got all the receipts and all the links to all the ISCs and SCLs and ATVs and posts and CitizenCons where they've talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes all the way back to when they started talking about the wanting to do, like, even just iCache.
Yeah.
And he had all the way back. But I wonder if they're like picking up like iCache failing and when they talked about pre-CitizenCon where the database was failing and they needed to get it fixed. Not that it did fail, but they needed to update it to make it work. But I people will find, like, when a topic blows up, a lot of this in Star Citizen, that some topic will blow up like, iCache failed, and that will like resonate like for all of time. And then they'll just call that a failure without following up on the topic on what they did to fix it. They just assume that it failed, so we don't have it anymore.
Yeah.
Because it's just resonating.
So here's the question, and I'll start with this is just kind of a back from Naz, and I'll go back to the tree and Space Tomato. This is the basic statement: is server meshing going to work?
Yeah, like it. There isn't a chance it's not going to work because they'll work on it till it does work.
Okay, tree.
I think the bigger challenge is, like, everybody's talking about it, because that's the big thing, is we have to really separate static server meshing, which is what's coming in 4.0, from dynamic server meshing. In dynamic server meshing is what really separates what CIG is doing from what other games and game developers have done, where instead of spinning up an entire, having a this is the limitation, the shard is this box, and the limitations of the shard and the technology that the shard uses, from all the different services and stuff, is this. And if we have too many players, we just spin up another shard. Whereas what Star Citizen and CIG are trying to do is they're trying to allow for dynamic server meshing to allow this box to scale up and stretch up and down it as needed, to make it so that way shards are more regionalized based off of latency. Your regional shards versus kind of like how ESO's version of persistence and replication. I talked to one of their engineers over there, and he was in our chat once, and he said that their version is essentially limited to, I think it was either 600 or 900 connected clients. And at that point, they have to spin up another one that has that hard limitation. Well, CIG doesn't want that. CIG wants their shard to be able to scale up as the number of people connecting to it scales up, and then scale back down. And eventually they will run into hard limits. But that's the part of the whole thing with server meshing for CIG is it isn't just making an additional replicant. It isn't, which is a single version of the replication layer. It isn't making just adding more servers. It is distributing all the microservices behind it, things that would normally be run on the game server, and allowing those to scale up as well. That's why they're part of the reason they're refactoring all these things is because right now it's just like with the replication layer, it was tied to the server. It was on the server, and so it couldn't scale when it was on the server. But by separating it, just like they're going, separating ATC, separating the mission service, all these different things to allow them to individually scale as a shard scales, that's where where they're able to remove a lot of those limitations. Not remove them entirely, because eventually you can only have, just like the original vision of server meshing, where you could only have so many connected clients before it just got, they talked about it in the server meshing video in 2021, how it just wasn't feasible to just have everybody connected to one DGS. But now, you'll have that, and I'm doing this the Chris Roberts talk, I apologize, but they will eventually run into that issue with connections and being able to synchronize everything. But it gives them a lot more room to stretch and grow an individual shard that a lot of companies aren't trying to take on. Because it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of research and development, and it costs a lot of money, it costs a lot of time, and it takes a whole lot of try this and that doesn't work, and try that doesn't work. But that's the way it is. Yeah.
Okay. I got that. So you went on a very, very good, nice, detailed diatribe.
Sorry.
So from the sounds of things, the answer is more complicated than yes, it will work, and no, it won't work. It's more that we're going to have there's a limit upon which CIG is going to reach, and they haven't reached it yet, but they know that they're going to reach it at some point.
And that's part of what static testing for static is. And you've talked about this, Paul. They don't want to have to do static server meshing, but they need to do it in order to stress the system that they built, to figure out where they need to put in those sort of, okay, here's that line that we need, we're approaching, 800 players on a server connected to the, a replication layer. At what point do we need to start scaling up things and adding in more servers, or spin up an additional replicant, and how do they work those connections? Because that's a thing a lot of people don't realize is that it's not going to be a single replication layer or a single replicant for all of the shard. They will add more of them. The replicant is designed to scale just like the amount of servers is designed to scale.
Okay. This is where I put Space Tomato on blast and make him answer hard questions, because last time I did this, I made him do a when question, and he said yes, it would come out this year, and he did actually. We did technically get server meshing in testing, because I do also want to emphasize before we continue on, CIG has tested server meshing twice already, successfully.
Was it only twice?
Mm-hmm. 3 times actually, because they also did it with Evocati. So, yeah, they did it Evocati, and during the Evocati, 4 times, because during that there was one just Evocati test where they tested two Stanton and Pyro being connected to one backend at the same time, and then they did another test where you could transition between Stanton and Pyro through the jump point. That was an Evocati test, and then they did 2 public tests where it was just Stanton. One where they split it up into I think like 6 or 8 different servers. The system.
There's multiple configurations,
and then they did one which with 3 configurations, 3 server configurations versus the 6 to 8 configurations. So that one was done.
10Pound42 has done a really good job of tracking those configurations and the different tests that they've run. So if you haven't checked out his videos on that, do so.
Yeah. So when I say something like they've already tested server meshing and it works, like the actual technology functions, because the actual technology isn't new. It's old technology, has been around for a while. It's just a big deal that it's working within CIG's parameters and how it's functioning. The question becomes more is like, can this technology continue forward with as it stands? So that's my question for you, Space Tomato, is do you believe that this technology, server meshing, is going to be the thing that's going to push forward and continue to grow and like become the kind of foundation that Star Citizen seems to want it to, or CIG wants to have for CIG or for Star Citizen long term?
I definitely think that. I'm in huge agreement with Tree that separating static from dynamic is the first step to that, because like I do think that static can be a good foundation for the game. If they were to just be able to split up, I don't know, every star system, and all star systems are different sizes and there's different populations and all that stuff. But like just by standard saying that every system is 5 servers, I have no doubt they can do that, and there's no knowing where the player count would go if they were to do that. But they want to do these dynamic islands, I think he called it in that letter from the chairman that one time. Basically have the ability for, theoretically, a big spaceship to be its own server, flying through another server in a system, and people transitioning between those servers into the spaceship, out of the spaceship. That's I don't even know. Like, I'm not a software engineer. I don't know how feasible that is in a game environment like this with all these different things being tracked. I mean, even just bringing up something like the Maelstrom system and how much data is involved there, and then thinking about all the other things of the entities that we need and the persistence that needs to happen with them, and looking at the way that the game works right now and how that persistence can degrade the game over time. There's just so many questions involved in, will server meshing allow the game to be what they want it to be? I think they've shown that they have the tenacity to continue to shoot for it, but I also would genuinely be worried of just how much effort that would take from the rest of the game's development, getting something like that to work. It's not the same people, of course, but it is the same pit of money, and it is the same development, pool of development. Your people, the people you're hiring, the places that you're focusing, they've got a lot of work ahead of them, I think, to make it work. But I genuinely, I don't know. When it comes to dynamic server meshing, I just don't know.
Okay.
That's a big ask.
All right. Yeah, because I was going to say that I think there's definitely a question in the air, because as far as we know, static meshing works. They've tested it. It works. There's some weird things that happen every so often. Like, for instance, when you're jumping into another server from through Quantum, it looks seamless. But when you try to leave that server and go to another server, so if you're in a server and you're leaving that server into another server, like transitioning towards a server, then it's seamless. But when you're jumping out, it's like say you're in a planetary orbit and you want to leave that planet, you spool up your Quantum and you go, you hit the edge of the server, you drop out, and then you have to respool and jump again. So it's not fully seamless because it pulls you out of Quantum. You can fly across them seamlessly, but when you Quantum, it doesn't work properly.
Well, and so I think it's another thing, like as far as expectation management goes, what they're going for with 4.0 is just like what they did with 3.18, where they were trying to get parity. We are introducing this new groundbreaking technology, and we want to have parity with what we had before with this new groundbreaking technology. We want it to be as close to the same experience as it was before, but having it allow us to continue to move forward. Because right now we're up against this wall. And that's what their goal was with PES. They said it multiple times. If you don't notice a difference, then we've done our job. Obviously, that didn't work out right. But once they knocked the kinks out, then 3.19, 3.19, it really was okay. This works, and it's enabled a few other things. But otherwise, I'm playing the game like I was before. But except for this new technology and that's what they're going for. And the reason we don't have it yet is, the mesh servers part works, but we don't have the mission system refactor. We don't have the updated quantum travel system. All these things have to come together for us to be able to have the experience we have in game right now with server meshing in 4.0. And once those things come together, then we can get in there and all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is the exact same as it had before. We might get a little bit more server performance, maybe not. Maybe it'll be, all over the place. We might get some higher player counts. But other than that, they just want everything to function as it did before, prior to server meshing. And then from there, it's just like we have now. We're past 3.18 several patches now, and it's a night and day different thing because we had that enabled. But that first patch of 4.0, we shouldn't feel a huge difference other than there's going to be some shit on fire.
You also have pyro, so you'll be able to go to a different system.
But in terms of like the
gameplay,
the experience, the experience for the individual player shouldn't be that different. But what will be a lot different is what we have in 4.1 and 4.2 when they start to work these kinks out and really start to push and test things and make their way forward. They probably won't allow for things like PES did. The PES was really a blocker in terms of gameplay development, but there will be certain changes that we notice in the subsequent patches that wouldn't have been possible without server meshing, and then the refactors that make it have allowed for compatibility. The mission, just thinking about the things like the mission refactor and updated quantum travel system, things that we've had issues with for ages and have been limited because they're like, well, we're not going to do it now because we're going to redo it later. I'm looking forward to being able to log off and then log back on and pick back up where I was with my mission. That's what the mission refactor will allow for. We always talk about how long it takes to get started. Well, we have persistence, but soon we're going to have mission persistence because it'll allow. That's what server meshing has the development for it is allowed for. And that we're narrowing that gap when you log out of the game and log back in the next time before where you get back to playing and pick up where you left off.
Yeah, I was going to say that we actually had this conversation because CIG's removed a lot of ability for logging out from bed logs in 3.23, and one of the reasons why is because they want to do persistence. So if you jumped out of your ship in like say you went to a Daymar and just went to a random place in Daymar and logged off when you're Aurora, when you log back in, they want you to be able to just be right back in your Aurora where you last were, and with no need for a bed or anything like that. You're just there. And that's something they want to move towards post 4.0. So,
the debuff from not logging out in the bed is back pain. and a tier 3 back injury.
Oh gosh, no. Oh, it's the 30
I want my
experience.
realism, CIG.
Yes.
You get your
You like
level
on the
3
floor or the ground where you're at.
Yeah.
You
I know-
got tier 3 back injury.
For anybody who doesn't know, try falling asleep on like say if you got like an office chair, try sleeping in an office chair and tell me how it feels the next day for sleeping for 8 hours in an office chair. Tell me
That's
at
if you
what
log
age.
out in your ship.
Yeah.
You're making my back hurt
in a
more
cave.
right now. Stop.
Which turns Star Citizen into the 30 plus experience where like you just wake up and your arm has a tier 3 injury. Somehow you have no idea how it happened. It just occurred.
Just yawned wrong the night before. It's like threw your back out.
But that's a really good example of things that they are waiting to update until post server meshing, because they're like, okay, this will be the new bar that we need to update things to work with. And so they've been waiting to update certain things. Some things have already been updated because they didn't need server meshing. They need a PES or what have you. But, things like, bed logging, that's going to be part of it. And so we are removing another barrier to the development of the game to allow us to get to the intended experience.
Yeah. Okay. I was the other thing I was going to really kind of hone in on was that like these are things they want to do. But the other thing that's important to note is that a lot of the reasons why this is happening is for gameplay. And this is going to sound weird for a lot of people who don't follow this closely, but one of the reasons why the infamous T-posing on chairs for NPCs happens is because the server performance is awful. And the reason why the server performance is awful is because CIG is trying to stick entities in insane high amounts onto one server, which isn't designed to handle that many entities. And everything they've done has been trying to move memory off of the DGS so that the DGS doesn't have to deal with that. But as you do that, it improves performance. So you go, okay, so we can add more players per server. Then it makes it worse because now more players are scattered around the verse, meaning more entities have to be spawned. If you've ever done something like Xenothreat and seen like the massive dump that Xenothreat will take in an area where you're playing, it's because the game server is trying to tell everyone in that region, say you have 50 people doing Xenothreat, 50 people in that region all have to render that exact same ship, and then that ship has to be rendered in all different angles from where it's being seen. So that information has to be stored by the DGS for all of those players to see. And so you'll often see those spikes and drops in terms of performance. And because of those kinds of issues, removing as much information off the DGS as possible is step one. But also doing things like server meshing allows for more, basically to compartmentalize the systems into their own servers. So you take what could handle 20,000 entities, let's just say that as an example, and now you give it the space that only has 5,000. You're going to get a performance boost. So
Yellow Dart Bubs inadvertently makes a point, though. This allows for if a server's performance is degrading, and maybe they're generating a certain number of errors, however they sort of track the, an error or an error count or whatever. When you have the Stanton system being simulated by 4 or 8 or 10 servers, and one of them, one of the dedicated game servers is reaching a point in its life cycle where, hey, it's getting a little bit tired. It needs to take a nap. Okay, we can use the replication layer to update a new server, hand over transition authority from that server to the others, while another one spins up with that information and then update it simultaneously. Because that's the thing is right now, it's just like if you have crash recovery right now, they could do crash recovery for the one server in the system, and it's essentially that process. And everything continues on, and you don't, you never have this point where it gets up to the top and then the whole thing fails and it affects everybody. No, it just affects this small little window of the play space and the people in it for a short period.
It was glorious. I don't know. Did any of you play the preview, the tech preview on the last tech preview on this one?
For
server meshing?
For server meshing? Yeah, I got to try it for not as long as I'd like, because I tried for a little bit and it wasn't going great, and then they put it back up, and yeah after that it did.
I think I was in there for a few minutes.
So I was able to do the one app, like, because they did it and then something messed up. So the next day they relaunched it with the fixes.
Yeah, it was a day later.
And I was able to get into both. And the one that would happen the day later, it was very interesting because there were people in the chat who were also playing in that same server I was in, or the same shard that I was in. And they'd come in and be like, X shard is down. Like, or X server's down. I'm on this and this server's down. And I was like in deep space away from that shard and I was still playing. So it meant that my gameplay wasn't interrupted. Only the people's who were in that shard or in that server that was were affected by that down. But if I went into that shard, or that server, I would immediately get hit with the please wait rebooting sort of thing. So for like a third of the server, yeah, it sucked, but for everybody else, it was fine. So you had pretty decent high like performance, like 30 hertz sort of servers. So like the AI was responsive. They were, the gameplay was smooth. My performance as a game never dropped below 40 FPS. It was 60 or higher everywhere, and it was super good. Like, it played fine.
Yeah. My server FPS was consistently high. It just did fluctuate a lot. Like, you rarely see it at 30, but it was going from 12 to 30 in these rapid mood swings, but it was still double digits the entire time.
Yeah.
So that was
what a dream.
Yeah, the lowest it dipped was like 20. It was like it would dip down, and that was because literally everyone was logging into the game, and so everyone was logging into the planets, and it seemed like all the planets were on the same server. So it was like 200 people were logging into one server, and still it was like 20 FPS server FPS. Even like I was in ArcCorp, I still had 40 FPS in ArcCorp, like my game FPS, which was like,
I was specifically talking about the server FPS.
Yeah.
Like, the R_display info. Not, I'm not running on a potato, but
yeah. But so yeah, it's getting better. And I would suggest anyone look up any footage from that to kind of get an idea of how that functioned. And
that's still pre-release of the tech.
Yes, that was just a configuration test. They were just configuring it differently and what
not
areas
even
was
in
covered.
Evo.
Yeah. That's why like the server meshing, like I imagine, I don't know, but I imagine a lot of people didn't really hear the devs what they said when they did the server meshing video. When they kept saying it worked shockingly well, they were expecting it to explode. No developer ever says that.
Yeah. They don't want to be admitted.
They have as much PTSD from 318 as we do.
Yeah.
It was,
like,
it
even
was
in
pretty
other
funny
games.
how frank they were about it too. It's just like,
yeah,
it didn't break. It's weird.
Yeah, like most of the time, especially with server tech, when devs are implementing things, they expect it to go about as good as No Man's Skies. Like, it's like that's generally, especially with server tech, how it goes. Is
You're
hey, I
talking
think
about
this will
launch. You mean No Man's Sky's launch, not current No Man's Sky, because No Man's Sky's
right.
Great.
Dude, I need to find time to jump into that again. Yeah. I don't know what they changed because like that's a half-an-hour video to figure that out. It's the graphics alone. This looks so good.
So let's go into this last little bit before we get into the question and answers, because I think we've kind of covered a lot of like what server meshing is and why it's important. I'm going to hit us with the future problem. I kind of already asked this, but I'm going to hit it you more specifically there, Space Tomato. Can CIG achieve their goals of full dynamic? Oh, I'll also explain this a little bit so people understand, because we've kind of hit on this a little bit. There's a confusion that people have. What CIG is going to do with 4.0 is static 1. They call it static 1, which basically means static server meshing, which means that the Stanton system would be carved up into a certain number of zones, and each of those zones is handled by a different server. And then Pyro will be carved up into different zones, and each zone is being handled by a different server. All of those servers are meshed together, so you can transition between them with
connected to one replication layer, one set of services,
Yeah.
And that is a shard.
And that is a
And
shard.
it's a static shard. So whenever it boots it, whenever that reaches its population limit, then they will boot up an entire new shard in that exact same configuration.
Yeah.
They'll just copy another one because that is what most games that utilize some form of server meshing will do.
Yeah.
It's a static configuration.
No matter where, even if nobody's in that area, they're going to load that area of that map just because they with that server, because they have to anticipate somebody coming in, which is one of the reasons why MMOs are expensive to run, because like I don't even want to know the costs of running a server that's capable of running Star Citizen for the hourly cost, let alone the daily cost of running those sorts of things. It is probably more money than I have ever made in my life. If you want to run something like that over the course of a year, because those services are very expensive. It's one of the reasons why most MMOs fail, because they just legitimately can't make enough money to offset the cost of running them, let alone profits. So with that, after that, they want to do what's called Dynamic 1. And Dynamic 1 is basically Static 1, but if those servers that, like, say, server 1 in Stanton, there is nobody in server 1 in Stanton on shard 12. Well, then shard 12 will just turn off server 1. So server 1 doesn't exist anymore. But if someone gets close to server 1, shard will go, oh, there's somebody in the proximity of server 1. Let's boot it back up. And then they'll just reboot server 1 so that people can go over
Not so much turn it off, but they will hand off everything that server is controlling to essentially the adjacent server. So if it's, if it was 2 servers for Stanton, then it would just become 1. They would merge and become 1 server. Not like it doesn't. Server 2 is only handling everything on this side of Stanton or wherever, and then this is just a void. It just means that server 2 is now handling everything, and so it expands and contracts.
Yeah, but it doesn't.
So
it doesn't expand beyond what the borders are from static, though. Yeah. From my understanding. So
what they said is they could, with that configuration, they could allow it for more zones, because with dynamic. You can dynamic isn't just the servers, it's also the replication layer. And so they could, in theory, go from, okay, we have 1 replication layer for all of Stanton and Pyro, and now we're going to say, okay, we can spin up more replicants to a certain point, but maybe now we'll have 4 replicants for Stanton or something like that. And now, but the hard limit for all those simultaneous connections is essentially 12 servers for Stanton instead of 4, and 1 for each landing zone, that et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, that's
but
more
then it can also contract
2, though,
down.
Right?
Dynamic 2 is where the borders are. They can be redrawn at any time, just based on density of load.
So static 1 is effectively, if it's a zone, it can be its own server.
Yeah, if it's just the zones are still a fixed fixed thing, and a fixed entity zone.
For anybody who doesn't know, your ship is a zone. Like, the interior of your ship is a zone. The area around a landing zone is a zone. The actual landing zone itself is a zone.
If you ever hear anyone talking about object containers and object container streaming, each object container is a zone. It's just different terminology for the same thing.
Yeah, they're object containers. So anything that's an object container can be its own server, is what Dynamic 1 means.
I think Dynamic 1 is well within reach. I think Dynamic 2 is near, for me, it's almost near parity with the single shard idea.
I think it was Benoit.
It's almost is the juice worth the squeeze kind of thing. If we've already got Dynamic 1, how much do we really need?
Yeah, now you start to bump up against how many shards will there be? Like how geographically speaking?
Yeah.
How many different worlds of Star Citizen will there be?
Yeah, I think it was Benoit that was saying that they really don't want to do static server meshing as far as the server engineers.
Yeah.
They would like to just skip it, spend the extra 3 to 12 months, and just skip straight to dynamic.
It's just cheap.
That's how close we are to dynamic.
it's finding those points where it needs to scale. But the big thing about Dynamic One that's important to me is it further expands what server meshing does. Higher player counts, more better
Entities.
performance, resilience, more entities. This is what allows for greater density of POI and gameplay in an area. But the other thing is, and I'm just gonna drop this bomb right here, but I think Dynamic One is really what's holding back Quantum/Star Sim. That's the biggest tech hurdle, and Star Sim Quantum has to be able to hook into everything as it's changing hands in terms of authority. And until we've got that nailed down, all these things changing hands with authority, and then some service keeping track of that in order to essentially tell Star Sim, hey, here's the updated email address or phone number for this thing that you're trying to maintain contact with as it's being handed off. They won't integrate it.
So you're talking about the dynamic
parity,
economy,
we're trying to
right? Because I do want to simplify it for some people who have no idea what Star Sim or Quantum is. You're talking about the dynamic economy,
yeah, because they wouldn't be able to maintain that parity. It's just like with 4.0. If they tried to make 4.0 dynamic version 1, we would be moving forward in one point, but our gameplay experience and things, it wouldn't be the same. They wouldn't have to be able to maintain that parity. And so if they already had Star Sim / Quantum, whatever they're calling it now, hooked up, the process of being able to get it working in order to maintain the parity with the gameplay experience that we have now would be astronomical. And so that's part of the reason that Benoit wrote it the way he did, is like, if we're waiting for these things to get in before we start hooking all this stuff up to it, because if we hook it up to it and then we change everything, then it's going to break. And that you're talking about your testing and development, going from 4.1 to 4.2 or something like that. That would be like the 3.0 doldrums. Where they're just taking forever to try and figure these problems out. No one wants that. They don't want that. That's even worse than 3.18. They iterated on 3.18 like that. But
it took them 3 months to get through 3.18, because like 3.19 was just 3.18 X patch. 3.20 was like August when it came out, and then once
they did a lot of iteration in a short period of time, but they wouldn't be able to do that in between these two if they had to fix this on top of move on to dynamic.
But that's really my question, because now that we can understand the difference between static and dynamic, like with Dynamic 2 being able to just get even smaller in terms of the detail. So not just is it an object container streaming, but like a quarter of this object container can be its own server, to basically just like squeeze out every little bit of detail you can get, so that the servers, you could in theory have thousands of servers for hundreds of thousands of players, because every step you take is going into a different server seamlessly, which is, in my opinion, insane. The question is, how far do you think CIG will be able to push it? Do you think they'll be able to push it to that insane detail, or do you think they're going to find, static is going to be the wall they hit and they just can't do dynamic? Do you think they'll hit Dynamic 1? Do you think they'll go even beyond this sort of like insane detail granularity of servers? That's why I was going to ask Space Tomato, because you kind of answered that a little bit, but how far do you think they're going to actually be able to go with this technology?
That was a long lead up to the question.
Well, it required a lot of context, because we didn't specifically talk about like how the breakdown was going to be, because
that all helps, because I don't have to say that stuff now. I think it comes back to being a question of money. Like, people talk a lot about how this company is doing everything it can to make money and stuff, and I think there's a whole nother conversation there about how much you bite off and how much you can support when you bite that off. They've bitten off a lot. But it comes back to money. How successful can Squadron 42 be to give this a solid boost in development? How successful can they be in monetizing this game without depending on ship sales? And how good does the game, are they able to improve the game after they get static server meshing working? And from the sounds of it, it sounds like they don't want to spend much time there. So it's a long-term kind of problem. Like this could be something that maybe they figure out dynamic server meshing within the next year and a half, but we might not be looking at the actual full scale of what they could do with it for 5-6 more years if that's what it takes to push the game. They could, call it short before that. But I do think that they can get this very granular. I mean, Stanton is a very unique system in what it provides for the game and how much really is supposed to be going on in Stanton when it comes to the dynamic economy. Stanton might be like one of the most active systems in the entire game. And I could see them pumping servers into that system to get it to work the way they want it to, with how important these planets are, how much trade is going between this system and Terra, or this system out through Magnus. Does it connect to Magnus?
Magnus, yeah.
Yeah.
Magnus,
So
Pyro, and Terra.
and that's an important route to go from Stanton to Magnus, and then obviously Terra is important. So there's just a lot of implications, and I guess this is why they started with Stanton. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much more I could put towards the fact that I think that they could push this really far, but it ends up just coming back to how can they fund it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, money.
I honestly think
Goodness.
that it will. They'll actually put a hard limit on how small the servers will try and make themselves. Like, I don't think a server will voluntarily make itself, except in some extreme cases, like smaller than a javelin or smaller than a single skyscraper, with like building interiors and stuff. Like, there's so few examples of when you're going to need more server power to, like, say, do a floor of building or a single room of a ship or a building. Like, the client will be overwhelmed before the server will in that case.
Okay.
So I don't think it will. They will have to put a hard floor on it, on how small it can be.
Tree, do you think they can? Do you think they can? I think the question is morphs into: do you think they can technically do it, and do you think they will do it?
I think the gap between Dynamic 1 and Dynamic 2 will be far larger than the gap between static and dynamic, and I don't think we're going to notice as much of a difference. I think everybody needs to remember that this is as much as we're interested in the performance aspects of this and what it allows for in terms of gameplay and granularity. This is also for CIG to be able to save money, to allow for the number of shards and the number of servers and services and all the processing power, because all these things, a lot of this just run virtually on these giant mega machines owned by Amazon. But for all that to scale down when North America goes to sleep and Asia wakes up. And so it's not all statically up and running and costing CIG a crap ton of money 24/7. And so it's meant to be able to save them money. It's just going to cost them a good amount of money in the first place. It's initially a short-term investment to allow them to get to this more efficient model. But I think we're definitely going to see an order of magnitude more granularity than we have right now when it comes to, if you just sort of imagine what is within Stanton. Because they've talked about this with the other tools, and Space Tomato has covered the tools ad nauseum, and it's really fascinating stuff because they are building these tools because they have an expectation to be able to fill up a star system with a lot of points of interest and a lot of content based off of their goals with server meshing.
I don't know if it's been specifically said, so I just definitely wanted to make sure it was that, like, just because one server zone is small doesn't mean all server zones are small. So if one server, let's say, does that one skyscraper in ArcCorp size, maybe that's like a hub. There's like an organization having their monthly meeting or something, and there's like 1,000 players in that one building, plus NPCs, plus environment work. Maybe that, like, all of space only has like 20 people in it, so you can have a all of space server and an ArcCorp server and this skyscraper server. It does so. They can be different sizes for different areas. So especially, like they've been saying, like Tomato started saying, like, the density of gameplay in Stanton is something that is unique to Stanton. Like, the biggest thing about like Terra is Terra. There's not much going on other than Terra in Terra, and like stuff like not Hadrian, but the Hades system, like it's a dead system. There's not much there. It's just kind of like barren rocks. There'll be the eventual like passer through or cargo run or a person trying to like look up Hadesian artifacts, but like there's not going to be a lot of stuff in there, especially compared to Stanton. So that there just won't be probably servers running there most of the time, and then it'll probably just be the whole system on a single server. And then on top of that, servers and how they split them up on the actual hardware. So a server isn't a physical server, so they can split up servers on the same rack of servers.
Yeah.
And for better definitions on that, go watch videos that can explain way better than I can.
All right. I think it's a good way of putting it. I will also say that I think CIG CIG has the technology. Once they got static working, everything else is done. They can do all of it. But is it worth the investment? Is it worth the time? Can they get what the levels are? Because there's going to be a point where, yeah, it's really impressive to say you could get, I don't know, 10,000 people in the same area fighting at one another. That's a great headline. But is it worth it?
Virtual machine.
How often are you going to even have those situations where 10,000 people are going to be fighting each other? Like
there's also again, how many shards will there be?
Yeah.
How many regions in the world will there be that they have to replicate this? If there was one single shard, then the amount of modularity they could build into how these servers work would be crazy. But if we need, 8 different versions of the game for different regions, or 20 different versions, however many they need to for that latency to keep up, then it's like, well, you have to multiply that many servers by that many different instances they've created.
I haven't had a lot of time to go through the Shenzhen Bar Citizen Q&A, but there was a kind of a sobering question. I forget where the servers are hosted in China, but there's only like one. And even in the Shenzhen area, they were saying they were getting 100 plus ping. I think it was Hong Kong, to the Hong Kong servers. And Chris was like, that's weird. Maybe we need more servers here. And like, it would be nice to find a way to go faster than light, but currently,
yeah,
just host the servers in Australia. Everyone gets bad connection. There we go.
I mean, the answer, the crazy
subs isn't what keeps Warcraft going.
Yeah,
MMOs survive off of microtransactions. It's not subs.
Yeah, well, that's a because I'm releasing this. Because I'm releasing this as a separate video now as well, so that people can watch the video. This is a plug for me to say you should go watch the Q&A, because that's one of the things we'll bring up about subs, how to fund this problem, because that does lead to the problem of how do you get funding to keep Star Citizen up if it's going to be so expensive to run this, and the question that a lot of people are pushing, who are saying we need to do a sub model rather than a pay to play or a free to play model. And we'll have that discussion. So make sure if you're watching this after the fact, check the VOD, which I'll link in the top right, or it'll be available for you to watch the full thing, the full VOD. This is just going to be the discussion section.
And current subs aren't funding like the game. That stuff's going to like CitizenCon development and video production.
Save it. Save it.
Okay.
Save it.
Just make sure that's the question specifically.
You got to push them towards the Q&A. Shut up.
Yes, so I can watch further. So I can double dip, baby. But I was gonna say, when it comes down,
paid mounts. Pretty sure that's the entire game, though.
What was I gonna say? Oh, the other thing is like I'm pretty sure that they'll do one shard per region. So like North America, Australia, Asia, EU. And I think that's it for now.
That would be amazing.
I think that's the end goal. Like, I don't know if it's going to be, because the other thing is that to remember, and I think Tree kind of hit on this, is that the more they can condense people into a larger shard, the less servers they have to pay for. Mm-hmm. So the bigger the shard, the smaller the number of servers, because if you have to pay for 100 NA servers, each with their own shards in them, or each with their own 100 NA shards, each with their own servers in them, you have to pay for the same amount of servers in every shard. But if you can do it in one shard, that reduces your cost by 99 or whatever. I don't know the math, but it reduces the cost a lot in terms of how much you can do. Even if you had to increase the number of servers that would be in that one shard, it would never be the same number as 100 North American shards would be. So that's a cost cutting measure, as well as also increasing player size and keeping the fidelity of the game, which is also, the important part.
I don't know how you guys have played the game, obviously, but I've played on Australian servers, being in East Coast North America, or East Coast US North America. It's not that bad.
Yeah, I average between 120 to 200 ping to Australia.
And
I live in Idaho.
100 for this game is not that bad.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's not Battlefront.
The US is on the East Coast.
Battlefield. It's not like Battlefield levels of ping where you have to have lightning fast reactions and it's more of a slower game than most things that need high or low ping.
Tell that to my spiking mining laser, man.
Yeah, the random spikes.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, with this, I think we've covered. If somebody came in here not knowing at all any of these things or having a bunch of misconceptions, I think we did a pretty good job. But if you want a better concept, there's a fantastic video by this tomato. This space tomato over here. It's called, what is it called again? Is it just called the server meshing?
Server meshing explained, the one from March.
Yeah, from March-ish.
Yeah. It's like server meshing explained something else, little clickbaity.
I'll link it in the description for people who need to see it. And Tree, I know you and Naz have done one on the Pathfinders podcast. Is it just like a Pathfinders podcast on server meshing?
Yeah, I was like 2 years
older,
ago, though.
But
Yeah, and that was everything was based off of current evidence. So there's been more since then. But
okay,
it was pre-test channel.
Yeah, before those stuff. So you can check those out as well to kind of get the history of how these things have evolved, especially if people are interested in where it came from. And if you enjoyed this and you're watching this after the fact, hi, thank you for watching. Make sure you come join us live Saturdays at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. Twitch.tv/TheAstroPub, YouTube.com/TheAstroPubLive, where we do the Captain's Table. It's not every Saturday, but we do most Saturdays. Sometimes we'll take a break because I've got vacation or I can't get anybody, or CIG's doing a big release, so I don't want to try to compete with CIG's own releases. And make sure you come back and watch the live Q&A where people are going to ask questions from the chat, and we'll do our best to answer them, including that subscription question. And to watch that, but that's a separate one. I wanted to make it so that this was more manageable. It's still going to be like an hour and 15 minutes, but that's a little more manageable than the 2 hours and plus this is going to be. So make sure you, of course, as always, like the video if you enjoyed this. Hit the subscribe button if you want to see this for more, and the bell icon to know when these release and when I go live. Thank you for watching. Thank you to Space Tomato, Tree 0311, and Nazarus, aka the Nova Forge. Make sure you check out their channels, which are all linked as well in the description. And I will see you all, or do the right one. Thank you for watching. And like I say every time, hope to see you someday in the black. All right. We'll be right back, chat. Don't go anywhere. We're just gonna use the restroom real quickly and be right back. Keep asking questions. We've got a couple of questions. We've got 5 questions in the queue. Only 5, which is surprising. So if you have questions, yeah, use the pub coin to ask questions, because if you've asked questions, we may not have caught it if you're on Twitch. On YouTube, I'll try to go back and look at, but just preface it with a question bracket and we'll talk about it there. So. Yeah, it doesn't have to be about server meshing. It can be any question as long as it's related to Star Citizen. Don't just start. Don't ask us stupid questions we can't answer the questions to. all that shark talk made you have to poo. No, I just have to use the restroom and get something to drink. We'll be right back, chat. We're still here, chat. When they come back, when everyone comes back, we'll come right back in for more conversations. All right, chat. We're back with the question and answer session with Space Tomato Nazareth entry 0311. We talked about server meshing, but we're going to answer some other questions. We're going to start with that one because that was a good lead in. The question is, do you think CIG will have to change their funding model and maybe even consider subscriptions for Star Citizen? Because it's been stated in the past that CIG didn't want to continue to sell ships after release. And with things like, it's very clear that CIG wants to make this CitizenCon about what 1.0 release is going to be. I guess it's a two-part question. One, do you think they're going to keep selling ships after release? And two, do you think they're going to have to change their funding model to, like, say something like subscription models? Who wants to tackle this first?
I'll go.
Okay, go for it.
I just put mine and Nazareth's answer in chat because we covered this on a podcast segment. But at the same time, that podcast segment was, theory crafting with evidence.
Yeah.
So it was pointing at things and pointing at CIG's financials and timing of things. But a lot of it is impacted by CIG's financials. And one thing you have to put into context is that CIG has growth goals that have been stated since 2019, 2000, that they're continuing to push towards. And that will make the a company's operating costs be $150 to $200 million a year, operating costs. And that's just based off of what we've got going on right now, not including increased server costs if that becomes a thing, depending on how efficient they get. But that's really just operating, it's largely personnel costs in terms of developers and such, which is huge. That's a crap ton of money. And, their server costs can only go up and down so much, that doesn't affect personnel costs. So I think they will continue to sell.
I will make the statement that this is the thing that is consistent. Every company, the biggest expense is people. No matter what you do, no matter what kind of company you are, your basic expense will always be your employees. They're always the highest expense.
Yeah. And they're going to continue to develop Star Citizen and make single player campaigns, and who knows what else they'll be working on with, 1,500, 1,800 people. Cause that's basically what they're going for, is about 1,500 to 1,800 people. Which is just nuts.
Yeah.
And so I don't think they'll stop selling ships. I think the flow of new ships will slow down. Because the big thing that everybody forgets is that for each new ship they add, that adds to the workload of the ship, the ship teams. They have to continue to maintain those. It isn't just release ship and they're done with it. They have to continue to update them. They have to continue to maintain them, and they have a giant backlog of ships that they already have to bring up to the various gold standards as additional gameplay gets added in. And so if they continue to add to that, they'll never get caught up. And so it's also the amount of money they make on ships versus the amount of people they have to pay to continue to both make them but also maintain them it's really cost ineffective compared to paying prop artists straight out of university to make props for microtransactions. And that's the thing is people are like, oh, they're going to have to go to a pay to play model. No, I think they'll keep a sub model that gets you stuff, but I don't think they will ever go to a pay to play model. We already have too many people that have bought into the game that would absolutely lose their minds if suddenly CIG said you have to pay to play. And I think that if they said, oh, well, just people after this point, you'd have a riot. It would not go over well. You'll make far more money on microtransactions.
Sued in the EU.
You could get sued in the EU, because it's changing. There's a lot of laws that are involved.
And so the only way it'd work is you grandfather in all the current players.
Yeah, and using WoW as your argument.
Yeah.
Using WoW as your argument is saying, oh, I'm going to use the exception to the rule for MMOs to say that pay to play works, because the list of pay to play games that have gone free to play and introduced a lot of microtransactions in order to fund themselves is infinitely longer.
And so it includes EVE. EVE Online.
Yeah.
EVE Online has done that. Star Wars, The Old Republic has done that. What is it? Elder Scrolls Online does that. Like pretty much every, I think even Final Fantasy 14 does that as well. They may have a different model, but you know,
the
Final Fantasy
common
is subs.
that we have now is you sub for a it's a regular microtransaction instead of a one-time microtransaction.
Don't you also have to buy expansions for World of Warcraft?
Yes.
Yeah.
But
so
the
funding
big
does
thing
not
is-
prop up World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
They need
Yeah,
to supplement that with the expansions.
And that's the thing is World of Warcraft doesn't survive on pay to play. It's a small portion of their actual overall funding. We don't know how much exactly. People have looked into it, but it's only a small portion. But if you look at how much money is made off of microtransactions for cosmetics, and you think that CIG is going to do anything other than that to fund their game, you're silly. It is 100% the absolute basics of consumer economics is to sell more things that are cheap, that are more affordable to more people.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter what your product is. That's why TVs have gotten so cheap. Everybody has a flat screen TV because they've gotten cheap to produce and they can sell more of them and make more money.
A great way of putting this as well, just to cut in real quickly, is look at CIG's funding when they sell a cheap ship that people want versus a very expensive ship. The cheaper the ship, the higher the bounce, because more people can afford a $30 or $100 ship than they can afford a $500 ship.
And more people can afford a $1 couch for their hangar or their hab or whatever, you know, that's the thing is people forget that no other game except for Star Wars, whatchamacallit from way back when, and even
Galaxies,
Star Wars Galaxies has ever had as much player ownership as what Star Citizen is going for. And if you can customize your ship, your character, your hab, your hangar, your base, and everything in between, you know, okay, well, you can sell that stuff. And all that, you know, and the way to appease everybody is make it so that you can earn it in game, you know, but if you just want to buy it now, sweet, 99 cents, here you go. And, you know, 500,000 people buying, you know, doing that. That's how you continue to pay for server costs and, you know, revolving costs.
Get the farmer's aesthetic pack, which gives you a bunch of cool like farming themed like things to put inside your base.
Space overalls.
Yeah, space overalls
honestly,
and
like,
couch and stuff like that. You know, for
which is
$10.
why I didn't understand why like people were so upset about the what are they called, the career packs.
Yeah,
like that was exactly what that was.
Well,
it was
I hate the career
The problem
packs.
was you can't get them back.
Why?
Because you can't get them back.
Yeah,
it
was premature. That's all that it was.
I see, because we didn't have the
when
item things.
Whenever they make that announcement at CitizenCon, because I am like 90% sure that announcement, for those of you who don't know, they completely pulled out of the idea that they're going to do the return items that are sub items to your account or to you through the new item kiosk system. That's been entirely removed from this year. Like and the reason why is because Tyler Whitkin stated that it's become part of a larger announcement that they're going to talk about at CitizenCon.
Oh.
And when he said that, my only thought was insurance. They're going
item
to
insurance. Let's go.
Which is there's your sub.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is news. This is old. That thing was announced like that. What I'm just saying was announced like 3 weeks ago, but no one's talked about it because, like, who dissects who dissects everything that the devs say because we've got a brain problem.
But it's like, Paul, it's what you always say. The end game of every MMO is fashion.
Yes.
Well, when fashion isn't just limited to your character, it's fashion and interior design, except for you don't just own a hab, you can interior design your ship, your hangar. You know, you can have like an apartment, you can have your hab, you can have an entire, you know, you could have an entire wing if you want to be some sort of real estate megalomaniac. Your interior design for your base that you're building, all that stuff. You know, everybody worries about losing your armor and your guns. Well, I'm not really worried about, you know, I'll probably be able to get it back or have it insured or be able to get it back. But if it's just cosmetics, yeah, that's the biggest thing. And they can, you know, prop artists to make that are cheap. And the UK is churning those people out of university at the rapid rate. And you can make that so much faster and so much cheaper than you can ships, and there's no maintenance.
We also know that
it's an interactable prop.
We also know that CIG has, with Squadron 42, hired prop artists, like independent contractors, to do a lot of like collectibles. So like a lot of the collectibles that are in Squadron were done not by CIG but by independent creators, and that's going to be cheaper often. Especially as Star Citizen grows, and if Star Citizen becomes a WoW, like a decade plus game when it's fully released, then you'll have people who were playing Star Citizen when where they were in university, leaving university, and then CIG offering them a job as a prop artist because they did some mod for Squadron or something like that, so they could do like a contract for them for a short period of time or something like that. So yeah. All right, that was a long response. Tomato, I'm gonna pick on you now. Do you think CIG is going to change their funding model? Do you think subscriptions is on the table?
Not for access to the game, but everything else. I mean, like I said, while you guys are having that talk, insurance.
Yeah,
that's huge. When it comes to the perks you can get, obviously the subs that they do now gives you stuff monthly, but there are probably quite a few things that they can tie into subs that give you a little bit better things in game. One of the things I've seen theorized was like claim timers and stuff, getting basically using time in the game to continue to almost push people towards a sub that can help them get time off.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's very risky. I think that could be abused incredibly easily. Yeah. So I would still be worried about what they could do with subs. I don't think subs will ever restrict game access, but I do think that they could end up being a problem.
Yeah.
And they've said like they want to do the subscriptions in game to be they're like insurance in game, bought with in game credits, because it is one of the main money sinks of the game.
Mm-hmm.
But you just mentioned that they could do that with IRL money, and that one, voluntary, don't have to do it. If you have the time to just make the money in game, you can just spend it in game. But it also, for those who don't want to lose any of their stuff and just not worry about it, they can just spend whatever the subscription is for whatever item or whatever insurance they're trying to get, and have it a recurring payment. They never have to worry about it ever again. Doesn't matter if you have 6-month, 12-month, 120-month insurance. It's just literally not a problem. And on top of that, in case anyone hasn't already heard, the LTI and insurance that comes with your ship is only the hull of your ship. If you change anything on that ship, if you put paint on it, invalidates the insurance. You will only get the hull back. So if you want to keep that paint, you will need paint insurance.
Whatever it comes from, with you're the basic stuff, the basic components, and you are a madman or woman or NB, whoever you are, a mad person, a mad individual. If you think that CIG isn't going to lock all of the best gear behind a reputation wall. And then be like,
I hope,
congratulations on grinding 20 hours to get the Class A jump drive. Now if you lose it, you lose it. You have to go pay for it again. Or you could insure it for 100 credits a month, kind of thing. So.
I just totally forgot what you just... I hope that because they're going to lock a lot of the stuff behind reputation, that whatever speed increases from whatever microtransactions you can get won't be getting that armor or getting reputation. It will be, here are the tools to go get the reputation, to go get the thing.
Yeah. Oh, and Moriar saying the claim has not been substantiated as. That is literally what they started. That's literally from the original insurance, was that you get LTI, it is whole insurance is what they call it. It is basic whole insurance. You don't get the upgraded for right now. The reason why you get upgrades back when you claim your ship is because they didn't. No, it's just they introduced it. There was a huge movement because people were saying we're not going to buy any gear because we lose it every time it explodes. We just give it to us until you get the insurance working. And Chris made a statement. It was one of those big enough that Chris made a statement, said, okay, we're going to do this. But, and then he made a huge bunch of caveats, like this is not permanent. This is only until we get the insurance in. Do not expect this to be the final changes. Chris was very clear on that because he wanted to make sure that people understood that like this was not something that you should get used to forever. That was like 310 3.8,
I
something
always
like
thought it was a
that.
bug.
No,
Half of the Star Citizen community wasn't even here then.
no, exactly. Yeah, it was before literally half of the community was here. This was back when like you just for the first time could purchase a ship in game, and you couldn't even rent. You could only purchase, and they reset your money every patch. So every patch, not just every major patch, every patch reset your
Before
progress.
baby persistence.
Yeah.
Yep.
Even before baby persistence, it was that. So like people were literally not doing it. So
Insurance.
correct. But when you see packs that have ship plus paint plus LTI, what they said 10 years ago, and now changes.
How did
But
that change?
I don't know if that changed, and it may be that you get LTI on that paint, but not on the paint you purchase separately. So
And again, you have to remember the EU, because the EU has some very strong consumer protections.
Yeah.
If you buy something with real money and then are able to lose it digitally, you will get sued in the UK or in the EU.
yeah,
So
probably in the UK too. UK's got pretty good consumer protection laws as well. So
yeah, so that makes sense that anything coming within the package will be, at least there will be a way to keep it obtained.
yeah. What I was going to say. Oh, my thoughts on this one, and then we'll move on to the next one. We've got a lot of people now showing up here, which is nice. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. I was going to say welcome everyone from Avenger One stream, where he came in. He come in at the end, or our question and answers section. We already talked about server meshing before this, so. I was saying, the question, which was about, So a lot of people don't forget that Star Citizen, CIG isn't just making Star Citizen. They're making Squadron as well. And they have made it clear in the past that Squadron is part one of 3 parts. And the question has been proposed in the past to Aaron, who said, they asked him, what are you going to do beyond that? You just going to do Squadron and done? And like, no, we want to do a single player experience once every 3 years with the tech.
Platoon.
Yeah, there's a reason why it's called Cloud Imperium Games, not Star Citizen Games.
Yeah,
they are a game company now. They will continue to produce games, and now they have this. I'm going to use the cringy word, Quad A engine. That like the reason Squadron is still there is because Squadron is just not done. The second Squadron's done, they will probably already have a outline of what their next project is.
I'm sure they do somewhere. And then you have to understand as well, and I know a lot of people kind of get jumpy when you talk about Squadron, because they're like, they're going to have to reinvest all of this money back into making another Squadron, but they don't. They're already pulling assets from Star Citizen back into Squadron to help improve the Squadron experience. And that's the advantage of doing Star Citizen, is that they can build a bunch of assets and like tools and stuff like that to make Star Citizen. And if they want to make a single player experience in the Star Citizen universe, they can just use all the tools and assets from Star Citizen. They don't have to remake them. Like say they wanted to do an espionage game in Farron. Well, if they have Farron as a system, they don't have to rebuild Farron. They can just pull Farron from Star Citizen and then use that as the backdrop. Now you don't have to build brand new levels because you've got everything there, or a brand new system because you've got everything there. You might make new points of interest, but any point of interest you make in that single player game can then be ported back over to Star Citizen and become a point of interest in Star Citizen. This is the reason why this is important, is because Aaron Roberts literally did the same thing when he was part of, what was the name of that game company? The company that made the Lego games. When
TT Games.
It was a TT Games?
Yep.
When he,
I think it's like Traveler Tales or something.
Traveler Tale Games, yeah. When he made Traveler's Tales, when he was head of that company and he was making a lot of those Lego games, that what they did was, it wasn't, I actually asked him about this at CitizenCon, because a couple people who were there who made it, I asked him about that, like, did you just copy and paste it? And they said, no, we didn't really copy and paste it, but we did use a lot of the assets, because a lot of the engine got changed every so often, but we build off of what we already had.
They didn't remake the studs for every game. They had the studs. They just
yeah. So it makes this progress faster, not necessarily because you're not working from scratch. It's kind of like how GTA 5 has helped GTA 6 in terms of then development. They're going to use a lot of similar models, but upscaling that kind of stuff. So like those sorts of things are going to sell as well. So they won't be as expensive to make. They can reuse a lot of assets. And then if they sell those, if those do sell decently well, those will also increase funds that come back into the company, because CIG as a company is the thing that needs to keep making money. And Chris has shown that as long as they make a small profit, they'll keep going. I don't know how long it's going to go. They're not a publicly traded company, but they up to this point, they've been fairly clear that they're mostly looking to make the game function, to make the game work, and then not to make $1 billion. And so as long as they can diversify the revenue stream, they'll still have subscriptions. They have subscriptions now. They'll keep that going if they can make some money off of it. Microtransactions, they're still going to sell ships. Like, I don't think we're going to see much of a change going forward in their revenue stream, because despite everyone, I've heard everyone say, this isn't feasible, this isn't long-term capable. Every year they make more money.
Mm-hmm.
Every year they make more money. I don't know how they do it. Sometimes I'm like, there's no way they can outdo, the last year. They're already on pace to beat last year.
Yep.
And this has been a pretty lackluster year in terms of like hype in comparison. So, yeah.
Well, after CitizenCon. Up until CitizenCon last year, it was pretty boring too.
Yes, that's true.
Honestly, I could see it going either way for ships specifically. I think for anything additionally to ships is absolutely on the table, but for selling concepts and released ships, I can see them stop selling concept ships for sure post 1.0 and just have released ships being able to be bought, because
like
that is one of like the
comes this
internet's
patch.
biggest problems.
Yeah.
With it comes this new ship and these 2 new star systems and whatever else.
Yeah.
I
I really
you'll be able
think
to buy that new ship, but I don't think the expectation of we have multiple new ships with each patch and they're just going to continue to make lots and lots and lots of ships, and I'm like, it's just a lot of that. Think of how many people are already on the ship team and how far behind they are already, and how far that just keeps on going, and it goes up exponentially with the amount of maintenance work just to keep things working. With this, the amount of ships, and so I get it. Also makes sense why they're doing variants and such. It just, in terms of being cost effective for them to maintain the company and continue to fund them, I don't see ship sales being the primary revenue source forever. I think we're going to see a much more balanced mix in the future, just because it's not going to be, it's, if you want to reach a wider market, you make things that are more affordable. That's all there is to it. And if people have this perception that Star Citizen is expensive and pay to win because you have to buy several $100 ships, I think CIG is going to try to move away from that perception, and that, more that these are buyable in game and you can only buy, you can just buy a game package, but, we're going to lean into microtransactions for customization just like everybody else, because it's a thing that works. And it's fundamentals of consumer economics, and I'm okay with it, as long as it's not pay to win by buying railguns, but buying this sticker for your railgun, I don't give a shit.
The only thing,
upgrade your fish tank.
The only thing I'd really, really want CIG to do is to, right now, I don't like the current cosmetic system because it's too rigid and
restrictive.
It's too restrictive. And I think if they made it so, like they said many years ago, that people always like to bring up, and as somebody who is a fan of customization systems, something like MechWarrior Online does, and I think other companies do, where you can get skins, and the skins you get is just like a pattern, and then you can color in that pattern however you want to, and you can get different color packs if you want, and you get a couple free colors, and you can do that. Something more along that line, I think, would go much further, because it allows for players to customize themselves in game without having to spend money. But if you wanted to get a very specific shade of purple, that may not be available. You can get it on a patch, but otherwise you can get everything if you wanted to. And it also allows for microtransactions to be something that is entirely up to you. It's optional, and it's entirely up to your own aesthetic decisions. Because I always don't like when I look at ships that are just like $15 for red. Like, no, that's bad. Because they're going to have that anyways. Like, no matter what, that's going to be an avenue for making money. But there needs to be avenues inside games to do that as well. So, all right, moving on. So that was the first question.
Somebody said bring back the Hangar juice box with 4.0 make millions. It's still in the subscriber store.
You can still load up the jukebox.
We can put it in our hangars in 4.0 or in 324.
I think you can.
Like that's a thing you can do. You
used to be able to import songs into the jukebox and then have it play when you clicked it. The problem is it was like a randomizer, and you if you had multiple people, it would only play for you, not for the whole thing. So.
Well, you can put in the CIG owned songs. The problem is you can't play songs over the internet for free because that's copyright infringement.
Yeah. All right. Del Ener asks, server meshing is becoming a prevalent in games recently, beyond Star Citizen, like Ashes of Creation and supposedly GTA 6. Is it exciting that server meshing is making a resurgence in gaming? Is it exciting that server meshing is making a resurgence in gaming? And what games would you absolutely love to have server meshing other than Star Citizen? So, like, are you excited?
It's exciting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's interesting because CIG was I think it's the earliest company that was attempting this. But then other companies started coming up and with these ideas, and then it was like, oh, this just sounds like Star Citizen's approach to server meshing. It's like CIG was the first to kind of recognize this possibility, and more people either independently came up with it or saw CIG and was like, maybe we can do that and kind of move that direction. Though, of course, it's always
the one I really like to point to is Dual Universe.
Yeah, Dual Universe is effectively what Star Citizen is doing. I don't think they did object containers like the Star Citizen does because it's a little bit more.
No, theirs is specifically physical space based.
Mm-hmm.
So it's this kilometer and then that. Which is funny because the company that Star Atlas is using to do their servers said that's literally impossible. it's a running MMO.
Yeah.
I think it'd be really interesting to see if CIG is trying to do this level of granularity across this level of actual physical space, how big the Stanton system is or other systems, and what level of granularity they're going for. What level of granularity could you achieve in a much more normalized or normal game type game space, where it's not spread across the entire Stanton system. It's condensed to what would be a normal game. What would Star Citizen like server meshing do for your medieval type games?
Yeah, I was gonna say like Sky, the next Elder Scrolls game, or like the next Witcher. Yeah, the next Witcher, or like
if they're streaming.
Oh gosh, what's it called?
6.
The Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Because one of my biggest problems with Kingdom Come Deliverance is that it feels like a very small game because it's a very small universe, and they're expanding it with Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. But screw this. Give them CIG. Give them your server meshing tech so they can do it, and they can do a 1-to-1 recreation of medieval Bohemia. Do it.
Well, and you think about what was the Bannerlords?
Bannerlords
2 came out. Yeah. Bannerlords 2 is a great game. Super fun. Imagine what a castle siege would be like if you had an actual 1-to-1 scale massive medieval castle. What would a game you could do 1-to-1 Game of Thrones. Somebody could build the entire Game of Thrones world in a game, and you could do a castle siege, with you and 100 of your friends and 10,000 NPCs storming, the Red Keep.
Yeah.
How cool would that be?
I think that'd be
bring back World War II.
Yeah.
I think that would be...
Omaha Beach actually has 10,000 people storming against. Just
Yeah,
that's to think about.
I think my pick for what I'd like to see in see server meshing in would be a building game for sure. That doesn't involve everything's combat because reasons, and we're not going to optimize our building system because combat reasons. Dual universe, come on. But space engineers, something like space engineers, hopefully with slightly deeper mechanics. But I would love to see server meshing with like a space engineers game where it's not just, you know, as many people as can fit on one server, but if you can server mesh space engineers, not only is exploration in the world will be able to be so much deeper and more engaging, but like you can actually have kind of a living player universe just with what it has, without having to deal with like everyone who's on Mars blowing crap up and you're on Earth just trying to farm crap. And you're FPS tanking.
Yeah. Any other ideas for Tomato before we move on? Any of the games you'd like to think or genres?
Multiplayer Deus Ex.
Oh,
Like a Cyberpunk style like game.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I knew that was coming.
Give me a Cyberpunk 2077 multiplayer, full 1-to-1 Night City. Baby.
I mean, that's I could
Didn't they
totally see
cancel
them
that?
doing that with
they did, which is
Blade
why
Runner.
whatever comes in the future.
yeah.
I really think these games, like, and especially from like really good studios,
Yeah.
they need to stop starting with the big project. Like, start with the small. Start with like, hey, here's a street. Here's your hab. Get the hangar module out, and then iterate.
Or
Like that's
do
how
a small
CIG's doing
game
it.
and move on. You know, yeah.
Or like a lot of small ones, then like tie them together.
Mhm.
Like that's how CIG's doing it. That's how Minecraft is so big, and like it's proven a model that will get you big games.
Ooh,
And
can we have a really good Orky wah with server meshing?
oh yes, I've always said that like the best sort of orc game is because orcs in the 40K universe are very much they work off of RPG logic where the more you survive and the more you kill, the bigger you become. So it's like literally experience makes you stronger. So an RPG, a survival RPG, where the orcs battle it out to figure out who's the biggest of them. Whoever wins the most wins, and gets larger and larger physically. And then as a crew, you get together and fight some NPC or a group of like humans or Eldar or Tau, where you just
You kids better be getting out of my way.
yeah, exactly. Just gathering a gigantic wall after beating each other up through PvP. And then if you lose, you don't die. They're just like, you're now part of my crew, and now you have to run around and beat up other people until you go find the other ones. So, you know, server meshing in that sort of situation would be great because you could just literally gather like 10,000 orcs to charge.
And honestly, I think as much as we'd like all these games, the problem is not server meshing. The problem is the art and the development around it to make the content to build
and the
world.
cost. The cost is
Yeah.
CIG is not like Star Citizen is not an affordable game. It isn't.
Yeah, there's a reason why publishers, one, they don't work with them because they wouldn't accept them anyway, but they laugh. They absolutely laugh at CIG, like, and they're bewildered why it's still working.
Yeah, like the entirety of Star Citizen's financing, including like outside investors coming in and paying, the entirety of CIG's entire history of money is made by like Warzone in a month. Like it's insane how much money like some modern gaming makes. Star Citizen makes nothing in comparison, which is the reason why you don't see another Star Citizen competitor, because it's just not affordable. It doesn't make all of the money, so no publicly traded company would even bother trying to invest the money and time and effort to get into that. It's got to be done by these
no
small
investor's going to
companies.
look at what CIG is making and be like, "Oh, I want to hitch my wagon to that," because they're like they're going to look at the profit, and be like, "That's it."
Yeah.
They
They made like what, 3 million last year. Like you know, that's a lot to us, but to a company like EA, that's a joke. You know, that's a failure.
That's what they pay in settlements.
You know, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's
All
so
right.
bad.
With server meshing coming, PES and sharding, All this talk about sharding. When will we get poop mechanics in Star Citizen?
We need the resource system first.
Yes. So post 4.0.
Yeah, it has to go somewhere. CIG isn't going to let it
Well,
not
our
persist,
characters
yeah.
are also resource systems.
Yes. So what we're trying to say is that CIG is going to do a gigantic. I could see them do this too. Q1 2024. What is April's Q1 or Q2? It's Q2, but it's CIG's Q1. Yeah,
It's the beginning of Q2, first month of Q2.
So I think whatever is like 4.1 or 4.2, whatever it is when they hit that for the first Q1, 4.2.1 is going to be released on April 1st, and it will be the poop update. Do not disappoint me, CIG, please.
Yeah,
that
I
would
still
be
want the
amount of
Raptor. I don't care.
The
I
amount of
still want the
trolling
Raptor.
that could be, for people who are still upset about bed sheets,
yeah.
Look, they put effort into making your character actually, sit down and squat and take a poop, and
Yeah, and releasing it on April 1st, people are like this is a joke, right? It's like no, this is this is a major part of our gameplay loop for survival.
using the shells is a skill-based system, and they're not going to water it down.
Get good.
Get good scrap.
All right, so I'll start with you on this one, Space Tomato. Northern Trooper asks, do we know if CIG is using AWS? Okay, maybe not Tomato. I don't know, because I don't know this. I don't know if Tomato knows this. Do we know if CIG is using AWS ECR with Docker container or K8s? To me, it makes the most. Yeah, the only person I can think of who might know this is Naz or Tree, because I'm not familiar with AWS's server configurations and stuff like that. So
No idea.
yeah,
I've been paying attention to, like, they're hosted on AWS, but the way things are configured,
the kinds of servers they
virtually
use
isn't Amazon. It's a different. But it's what it actually looks like physically. No idea.
Moriar is saying AWS ECR, so I'm assuming that's probably what it is.
Well, and the other thing is
what were the two options?
Configuration.
Oh, I know Kubernetes because someone was coming on earlier when I was doing
Kubernetes.
That is apparently the big hotness for a lot of MMOs using those sorts of configurations.
K8s, that's what it's K8.
Yeah, the K8s.
I don't know off the top of my head, but it wouldn't take that. Like, that's something I would do on my stream. Just like somebody asks a question, let's go research for an hour.
Yeah, that would definitely be a cool watching Naz go look it up all and find all the information to kind of figure it out. But
honestly,
the goal of server meshing is not to have to buy the most expensive and highest performing servers, but to be able to just get a large volume of them when you need them, and then offload them when you don't. And that's the argument that they've always had is like, why would I pay to have my own servers and have my own servers that are the fastest ones ever? If because it's the law of diminishing returns. You get more performance, but you're paying exponentially more than what these are, and I only need them for a short period of time while concurrency is up. So
yeah. Now I will ask Space Beta this one. Del Ener asks, researchers recently were able to substantially increase fiber through speed utilizing different channels. I'm not a tech priest. Don't ask me for an explanation. Basically, we've only.
I know it.
What's the explanation is?
So they didn't know how to use specific wavelengths of light independently of each other, and they basically were able to figure it out with current hardware. So where you were only able to use one lane basically of light through the fiber, you now can use like 20 of them.
Yeah.
All at the same time.
And it uses the same infrastructure. So you don't even have to dig up and build new fiber. It uses the same speed.
Same routers too.
Yeah.
The way I understand it though is it's essentially it increases throughput. It doesn't increase speed.
No.
And so,
but it's light.
But what that helps though is if you are bottlenecked by throughput and you're being essentially put in a queue for your data to get sent, that wouldn't be a thing. And the biggest thing that this helps is to allow for data transmission in between continents through the wires connecting us via the oceans to be that much faster because we have that much more throughput, so there's no more queuing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
So
it might not help if I'm going from here to a Washington server from Idaho, but it might help to connect me to Space Tomato or me to Blizzrad in Australia.
yeah.
Yeah.
The question
I
is,
wholly concur with these answers.
301 terabytes per second.
yeah, it's insane. Like, I think the
That 1
researchers were.
terabyte is what makes or breaks it.
Was it South Korea that they made this discovery? It was either South Korea or like, or was it Europe? But whoever made the discovery, it was funny because I heard people being like, oh, they're already going to monetize this, and it's like it's too late. It's the cat's out of the bag because the person who made the discovery immediately told everyone how to do it. We're just like, hey, this is how you do it. Didn't even monetize it, just immediately set it out for free for everybody. So I'm sure there's a lot of.
I think also how some LEDs got made.
Yeah.
Because they screwed over the engineer. Like, okay, fine, I'll go elsewhere.
Yeah. So this is something that, and there was some tests done where, like, I remember seeing an article on it, but from gaming perspective, which was like, you could download some of the biggest games in the world in like 30 seconds with the speeds.
Assuming you could break apart data into the throughput,
into the packets, yeah, because you could put more packets in the in the pipes basically, rather than speeding it up. It's just more, you're just delivering more information at the same
the speed of the water. It's the size of the pipe.
Yep.
So when Star Citizen releases poop mechanics, there won't be anything getting clogged.
There we go.
If my poo in my ship crosses a server boundary, it won't desync.
Okay, here's the other thing, because this is what it was. Kubernetes work as basically the way that server meshing is designed to. You have a big server and you can break it up into smaller little chunks, and then lower, like raise, like basically take down and spin up portions of the server as you need to. So it effectively works how so you don't have like an outage for the entirety of the server, just portions of it. That's what people are talking about it. Way of spinning up services in containers. So makes it possible to use huge servers that run many servers on each, and spin up those up and down on demand. So yeah, that's yeah. Anyways, the question becomes, could this be a potential game changer for how CIG does server meshing? No. I don't think this has an impact on Star Citizen at all.
And the problem,
the way Benoit explained it to me, is everything that they are using in a shard is basically within the same room, and so they make sure that if they're doing a mesh server, that you don't, the way they have it configured and the way they have their agreement is that if you have one server in a system and another server in the system, those two virtual servers aren't being run on different physical machines, in different cities.
Yeah, they already have
everything is and so there is it's lossless transmission from, even if it's in a different physical machine in the same room. There's no data. There's no.
And the problem with like client to server transmission, like, yes, it uses hardware that is the same, but you still have to like configure like properties of the servers to be like to decode that much data at once. And you have to, on the ISP side, on the client side, and on the server side, to be able to say, hey, break this up into, instead of one stream of light, 20 streams of light, and what is being thrown at the client server at whatever point. So it's not just a switch to say be faster.
Yeah,
it will take other development.
Huge for limited sizes of huge. Okay, I don't know what the chat's going on about. All right. Okay, we've already talked about Ashhole, who says, like, without other than ship skins, subscriptions, what are other ways CIG can monetize the game? I think we covered that one pretty effectively. All right, I'm gonna set this on you, Space Tomato. Finally, I'm gonna give you one that you can answer. Okay. What is the highest player count per shard CIG will achieve, and what would you find acceptable in the game? So, like, what do you think they're going to be able to for the maximum sizes, and what would you find acceptable, even if they couldn't hit the maximum size?
For a shard?
Mm-hmm.
For a whole shard?
For all 80 or 80 to 100 systems.
Yeah.
I don't know. 80,000 people? I have no idea. Between, like, yeah, how big the game is. 10,000 people? I
10,000
don't
people?
have any sort of... I've never played an MMO before Star Citizen.
Yeah.
So when it comes to guessing numbers of what people can do, I'm not a network engineer, and I've never played an MMO, so all I have to go off of is what CIG has said,
Mhm.
and they've never given us a number like that from what I know. I mean, Chris has said he wants thousands of people on a planet. I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
maybe that could be possible, but I would hope we could see 1,000+ people in a star system. And if we can reach that, I think that's fantastic, because that's 10% of the entities or the characters in that star system. So if we
Nice.
can see 1,000 players in Stanton, that's 100,000 characters, actors. And
Mhm.
that seems like a great number to me.
Yeah. I will agree. I think if CIG is ambitious and really wants to actually do one shard per region, like there are 1 million players right now. Most of them are in the US. It's like 40 to 50% of them are US, and then like 30% EU. It's an insane amount of people who are US based for this game. And then it drops down, like the rest of the world kind of breaks up. It might be lower than that. It might be more like 40 or maybe more like 30%. But US is like far and away the largest population. Last I had heard about the population numbers. And but even then, like what's 30% of a million people? That's what, 300,000? Like you're looking at, like, that's, if you want one shard to hold 300,000 people, that is nuts. That is a huge amount of people. Obviously not all 300,000 are going to be on the game at the same time, but you may have to, like, if you're really trying to do that. Like that's big. So I couldn't tell you. I would say
the goal.
1,000 people. I agree with Space Tomato. 1,000 people per system is probably, I think, a solid one.
As per the 12/30/2022 letter from the chairman, an MMO with millions of players was said. Though he didn't specifically say one shard, it's kind of implied.
Their highest daily concurrency they peaked at like 100,000 for their highest daily, and I think that was during Invictus launch week last year when they last reported it. But that's daily, and that's not all 100,000 people on at the same time. And so it's this is Ray's guide explained it this way. Yeah, they have two issues. One is absolute concentration, one is absolute dispersion. But you run into an issue both client side and network side of absolute concentration. Even with dynamic server meshing, a fur ball of 1,000 ships isn't really going to be possible in terms of 1,000 ships with each being its own player, 1,000 fighters. But you could have, thousands of players spread across multiple fleets with capital ships and everything like that, and that would work.
Yeah, he specifically says later on, tens of thousands of players in one chart is their goal.
Yeah, and I think, that's, you have to correlate that. Say in 2 years, wishful thinking, we have 5 star systems. 10,000 people across 5 star systems isn't the same as 10,000 people across 50 star systems. And so as the game grows, or the game universe grows, that issue of running into greater concentrations of players is not as much of a problem when we've got more of the game world in, and people there's much greater dispersion because people are going all over the place. They do all sorts of different things. And so I think our shard limit next year of 1,000 people will be 10,000 people 3 years from now, and 50,000 or 100,000 people 5 to 7 years from now, as the game universe grows, and they refine these things. But at the same time, CIG will have to include some form of shepherding that prevents 10,000 from all of test squadron logging in at the same time in a coordinated event to go in the same pocket of space, because that'll just make it, everything will implode. It doesn't matter how good their tech gets, everything will implode if all of tech squadron goes to microtech on one shard.
All right. So move on to the next question from Moriar the Chosen, who asks, if CIG actually follows through and stops ship sales, no, we've already gone over that. Because they point out things like Dual Universe literally had to kill aspects of the game and increase the cost of sub to cover their database and server overhead. Do not
large portions of the game.
Do not compare Dual Universe to Star Citizen, and I'll give you the answer. The reason why. Has anyone talked about Dual Universe since its release?
Only
Hey man, don't be mean.
Don't be mean.
Yeah.
I'm just
somebody's talked about it.
I have not seen any discussion on it in gaming spheres on social media. And a lot of it has to do with it's just not very popular. Like
it took two genres that were independently unpopular and put them together and made it bad.
Yeah, like it's
this is affectionately from somebody who went straight to the $400 Kickstarter package. So I didn't have to pay the subscription fee. Like I said, I'm probably going to play this for the rest of my life. Let's not have to pay a monthly fee.
Yeah, because Naz, for those who don't know, started a lot of still does a lot of Space Engineers content. So, and it was very Space Engineers meets survival MMO sort of thing.
Yep. We were supposed to be able to knock down trees.
And
all player generated content, right?
Yes.
No, because they were supposed to. But in development, they started they started the markets based and they said like, hey, we're gonna like fake these markets, and they just left them in. They just left the fake markets in.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like,
and that's kind of the problem. Is my point, is that like the difference between Star Citizen and Dual Universe is that Star Citizen has managed to capture the attention and the not just the attention, but like the imagination of people much better. I couldn't tell you how or why. Maybe it's because of their interaction with the community. Maybe it's because of the drama it created, so it can gather more interest because simply through sheer clickbaity articles like, hey, it's a slow news day. Let's pull out a Star Citizen thing, and then we'll get more clicks like that. Like, it's clear that whatever the secret sauce of Star Citizen is, it works. And so Dual Universe had to shut down parts because it was too expensive to run and they couldn't generate enough profit. CIG doesn't have that problem. It's clear like that. So that's the important part. Trouble Magnet asks, I will also continue to say, this is one of the reasons why whenever I hear people say that they want Star Citizen to be more sim, no, you don't. You want a game. And sims don't sell. That's why that's why DCS is so expensive, because you have to pay every single time for a new upgrade, because the reason why they do that is because they know they can't sell them. If they sold them all in one package, they wouldn't make any money. So
it's also why The Sims has $1,000 in DLC, because it can't sell multiple copies of the game to people because there's not that big of an audience. But for the people who are there, they can continue to sell to them.
And DCS is riding the line of financial ability. Like it, Oof. Like the reason why that I've looked at, for those of you who don't know, I am a huge fan of trains. Like Like I love trains. Trains are the shit. I want more trains, like trains and mechs. If I got both of those things, more trains in
What
Star
about
Citizen.
mech trains?
Ooh, you're talking about language. But like those are the things I really, really like. And if we can get more trains and mechs in Star Citizen, I'd be happy. More trains and actual mechs in the game.
Do you know the point when I'd basically like give every cent to Star Citizen that I ever made?
What's that?
If they said we can make trains with base building.
There we go.
That would be just I'm just going to live in a cardboard box and spend all of my money in the game. That's just what's gonna happen.
I'm gonna enjoy myself.
I'm gonna do the whole like dystopian VR thing where I'm just like I have my little outlet for my VR set and I just spend all of my money in the game.
But there is a train game. I can't remember the name, but it's like not Train Simulator. It's like
Railroads
Train Tycoon.
Online.
Railroads Online. Is it Railroads Online? The one where like it costs $60 and then all of the expansions are $60 and there are like 100
Oh, are you talking about the
expansions.
sim one?
Yeah.
I mean, there is just train sim.
I think it might be called Train Sim. I have toyed with it because I'm like I love this sort of thing.
Yeah,
but
I tried a train
can't-
sim once, and I'm like, there's way too many buttons in here. It's
Yeah.
just like,
It's just too expensive.
you think Star Citizen has a lot of controls?
Yeah.
Go play a train or airplane, like airplane liner sim, and just like look at the console
Yeah.
and then die.
It's one of the reasons why Microsoft Flight Sim has to do yearly updates because there's no way they can maintain it as like it is now. So, anyway,
Yeah, Railroads Online is a game, but it's an MMO about building railroads.
How closely tied? Troublemaker asks, how closely tied to AWS do you think CIG is at this point? The poor China server performance may be a sign they need to switch again. Remember I remember they used to use Google servers. They actually used to use Azure servers. Thank God they don't do that anymore. After this week, oh Jesus fuck.
No one solution will ever fit everyone. Much like any game can't make everyone happy. Like there will always be something that is a problem.
Mhm.
Always.
I couldn't tell you if that's the case or not. I think it's just more of a matter of working with your company that hosts the service. That's all it is.
Yeah. And I would imagine
is the juice worth the squeeze to transfer over?
Does
And
AWS work in China?
Yeah.
Or is it a separate company that they have to work with to get their service to work in China? Because a lot of companies have to have a China-based, China-owned.
I'm sure
company.
Amazon has a China-based company, but I couldn't tell you what it is. Azure was not the problem. It was 100% Cloudflare fucking up. Oh, I know, Troublemaker. I was still making a joke. I was sending in misinformation through a joke, Trouble. But thank you. I should always test the audience because
I don't know why so many people are so violently like it wasn't Microsoft. It doesn't really matter whose fault it was. Half the world's technology stopped working.
Yeah.
If it wasn't like Microsoft's actual tech, they were still the dumb ones who relied specifically on it.
Yeah. A lot of people relied on it, but yeah, but it wasn't. Yeah,
I totally had foresight. I was a genius. I didn't rely on it. Like, that's why my service didn't go out.
Yeah.
Like, it went down. It happened.
Yeah.
Like, let's not be zealots against like
it was a joke.
Wasn't.
It was a joke.
I know. I've just been hearing like it wasn't Microsoft all day.
Yeah. All right. So this one's specific for Space Tomato. This is Space Tomato.
They're all Space Tomatoes.
Yes. I'm trying to get
Maybe I
Space.
can answer this one.
I'm trying to get Space Tomato to talk because it's been like all these technical questions that I'm like, I don't know. If I don't know if Space Tomato knows, but Tree and Naz probably know. This one is for just for us, Space Tomato. Not you. Tree and Naz can be quiet for this one.
Normies, let's go.
89 Dig Dug asks, will we finally see edible pizza in game when we have server meshing?
That's the question I get.
Oh boy. Is it a when? Is that the
whole world waits for you to answer the veiled when question of when we're gonna get pizza in game?
Well, what really matters is how big the shard sizes will be to answer. No. Oh yes, we're gonna get pizza in game. How crazy would they be? I'd quit everything. I'd sell my whole fleet.
Yeah,
if we
so
didn't get edible
the
pizza.
answer to the when is when Tomato gets does his work as a 3D modeler and a tech artist, and then gets employed at CIG, and then implements it himself, then quits.
Whenever we get procedural pizza tech,
We have procedural pizza tech. They talked about it like 5 years ago.
That freaking 10-hour video of them making the beans and all the
Yeah, we have that.
All I can say is if CIG forces us to put beans on toast for breakfast, I'm fucking rioting. Okay? I better not have any beans on toast fucking option in game.
The Australian food?
I don't want to see any blood pudding near my fucking Star Citizen, all right? Whatever it's called.
We need avocado toast.
No more Vegemite in the future.
Vegemite, yeah. We need avocado toast and Vegemite on all things. But honestly, I think they're like with clothing, with food, they're waiting till the game's a bit more mature till they start adding what I'm gonna call frivolous additions.
Yeah,
that are going to take time, but is just a repetition of things.
It's the same thing as like ships. Like ships, ship naming is something that they could do tomorrow. But
I quote him. Just said pizza is the same thing as ships.
Yes, pizza and ships are the same thing. They're as important.
We need concept artists to work on our pizza.
You don't understand. You don't understand. Like if pizza is not available in game when Star Citizen launches at 1.0, I'm requesting a refund. I am fundamentally going to Chris Roberts himself and demanding my money back. I'm not even joking.
How do you got to do that when you have it attributed to your account?
You can take my account away. You can burn my account as far as I'm concerned.
Could you delete my account? I'm absolutely done.
But like stuff like pizza,
refundian.
Stuff like pizza and the sort of food things, they don't matter to make the game function. It's like, remember how many people got mad when they added the barista? Like people got legitimately pissed because some intern developed technology so that they could run a barista. It's like, what the fuck? Well, guys, it's just
all right, but you know it was really just veiled anger over the years of bartender tech.
Yes, that's true.
That's what it was really about.
But that's the sort of thing. It's like edible pizza is that. Same with like naming ships. Naming ships is basically something that they could do right now if they put time and effort into it. It's not a complicated problem. It's just the reason why they don't do it now is because when they did the system that they have for some of the ships that work, they couldn't scale the text big enough, and it also looks awful on some backgrounds. So they have to develop a solution to allow it to like change with the skins that are being added to it, and then scale in size. Let us
color it and place it where we want.
That would be good too. But like, and is that a complicated solution? No, like it's not something that's going to take them more than, I don't know, I'm spitballing here, like 3 to 6 months maximum. And that's with like all sorts of bureaucracy and stuff added to it, and making sure that by adding names, you don't break something else in the process.
Yeah. I think but it's
just not a valuable, like right now it doesn't matter, because like that same work could be done on making more skins or changing how, like fixing lighting or whatever. That the people who would be in charge of that could be doing so many other things right now other than that, and they'd rather be doing that because it's more important to the gameplay. Like Squadron or like
I think
Maelstrom.
A much more important question is, what's the first pizza they're going to put in game?
Pepperoni.
No, like where from?
Where from? It's going to be
Chicago,
New York. It's New York.
Is Magnus Pizza going to be like Detroit style pizza?
Yes, it has to be.
I mean, no matter where it's coming from, there's going to be tomatoes on it. So
yeah, there we go. Space tomatoes, maybe. It's imported through space.
Cannibalism. Hold on, wait a minute. Kazi Grazer pepperonis.
Listen. Okay, I'm gonna have to defend something right now.
Oh no!
So someone says CS Digital Design you wasted your prime on the VTuber Fillion, didn't you? You can never waste anything on Fillion, because Fillion is a gift that keeps on giving, because she fundamentally is a walking meme. So she's a living human meme, and she hours of entertainment for free. So So
Are VTubers canonically human?
no,
Okay. then not human.
VTubers are canonically gremlins. That is the official term for VTubers. So
It was a hilarious a video I saw that was like, I'm protected from VTubers because I have grass all around my house. And one of them spliced it in, and they're actually allergic to grass.
Pirate Software, yeah. That's a name you don't bring up in Star Citizen circles now because
apparently he hates it because it's a scam or whatever. But whatever,
Yeah.
he'll be converted eventually. All will be converted to
the cult of Chris Roberts. Yeah.
Yep. Once they stop selling ships, if they ever stop selling ships, that will be one of the big things that the internet stops having as an argument.
Yeah. Fillion is the prime meme for girl failure. God damn it. Use Dead asks, when Pyro is given to the players, will we see a new Stanton to match all of the refactoring tech that Pyro uses? Tree, what do you think?
Well, like in terms of the tools, they've been updating Stanton as they go for the most part. I think the biggest thing that's left is the outposts are going to have to be updated to work with everything. And yeah, that Space Metal, you've covered all the sort of aesthetics of outposts and the what's the word that you always use in terms of like the design style and what it looks like.
The archetype?
Archetypes. There you go. Thank you. Yeah. Whether it's the buildings or the stations and everything. The question is, are the old school outposts in Stanton going to remain like that and get a refresh, or are they going to get replaced? But the planet tech, whenever they make big updates to the planet tech, the planets get updated. And so there's, if you're expecting Pyro to be functionally different than Stanton, I think you're setting yourself up for disappointment. I mean, there's going to be differences because it's a lawless system and the aesthetic will be different. But in terms of the tech used to make the planets and everything, it's the same tech. It's just some of the POIs in Stanton are dated compared to Pyro has all new ones. And that, I think that's the biggest question I have is, are we going to get Pyro style POIs in Stanton that aren't all, I don't know, but bedraggled, rundown, yeah, because we had we had the derelict ones that are all beat up, but are we going to get those colonialism style, or are they going to refresh the sort of
isn't
modular
the colonialism
on
style
stilts ones?
Specifically because of the age of Pyro?
Yes.
Yeah, so we won't necessarily have a whole bunch of colonialism ones because Stanton, as old as it is a constantly updating system.
But it's kind of weird because Pyro didn't get settled during the colonialism era, right? It's just a frontier system, so they're using this style for it.
It did get settled during the colonialism era. It just wasn't popular. It was settled in the same time period as the golden age of colonization, because it was literally discovered during the golden age of colonization. But like when you have a choice between living on, I don't know, Terra or Pyro, what are you going to choose to live in? Because when you have the options of fresh land, and because Terra and Pyro were discovered pretty close to each other. Same with like Farron and Virgil and like these worlds, in some cases are like literally idyllic paradises. It's like, come to Pyro, where you get blasted with radiation every 5 minutes through a sun that wants to kill you. Hey, buddy.
And they've also said, like, they would like to apply the lessons learned in Pyro to Stanton. It will take a concerted effort.
Shrub.
Yeah, you have tree and shrub.
Sapling.
Sapling.
The branches.
There we go.
Daddy's almost done, Booney. We'll come see in a few minutes.
So, but yeah, I think it's right. It's like the tech isn't necessarily going to be immediately updated, but I do think anything that goes into making Pyro in terms of like lighting or planet tech will also be funneled over to Star Citizen or to Stanton, even if it's Star Citizen. Yeah.
I mean, think of how compare the Herald to the MSR to the what ship just came out. I mean, even the Corsair is pretty good, but to any ship that's like modern edition, the Hull A is a pretty good one. They haven't go reworked every ship yet because they're still making new ones that it will eventually get reworked. Same with planets and systems. They're going to continue to build more and continue to get better at making more, and they'll eventually circle back around to update the old ones with the new stuff.
Yeah. That's kind of.
I mean, they have talked about updating the planets with the planet tech and those changes. I think the biggest noticeable difference to me is they specifically talked about lessons learned with the space stations. You know, and Space Tomato did a giant long podcast video about the space stations and their designs and a lot of things that they're lacking. And the flow and the way that they're organized is dramatically better in Pyro. And so I wouldn't be surprised if our space stations in Stanton, the interiors got reorganized, because it's just a matter of just moving the modules around to make the flow a bit better. But the modules won't change. You know, the aesthetic will still be there. It just will be a little bit easier to move around in them. But I think that and the planetary POI that we have in Stanton that is dated, the derelict outposts are new. That's brand new tech. The caves are all brand new. It's brand new tech. They've been getting iterated and updated, as they go. But the, I think the interiors of the old bunkers and the old outposts, the modular ones on stilts, are going to be the biggest things that need to get changed and updated. That will require the most of a facelift, as well as the interior of the stations. But yeah.
All right. 89 Dig Dug asks, is it just server meshing or dynamic server meshing that's holding stuff back? I'm going to jump on this one because it's server meshing.
Yeah.
It's not dynamic. Dynamic is effectively the same thing as static. What it comes to, it is the difference between static and dynamic is mostly just how the service that runs the servers functions.
And honestly, it's barely server meshing at this point. It's more of the tech needing to be plugged in for server meshing. It's the mission system. It's the ATC system. It's the what other systems there were? Transit system. They're still preparing the game for server meshing because they needed to wait till they knew what the state of server meshing, how it worked intricately, before they need that done before they started hooking up the game for it, or else they'd have to again rework it when they actually knew what server meshing was going to look like. Now that they know and they are ready to implement it, now they can say, okay, we need to make the transit system, the mission system for that system of server meshing.
Yeah. There's, as I like to say, there's no such thing as netcode. There's no such thing as a lot of stuff. What we call server meshing isn't just server meshing. It's a fuck ton of other things that are running in the background, all these different services that were connected together to make server meshing work. You won't see it, but that's a sort of thing there. It's effectively they're basically the same thing. So if you're building something like a mission system to work on server meshing, the mission system doesn't need to be rewritten for dynamic. Once it's done for server, it works. Dynamic doesn't change the mission system. It won't. And I think Tree, you brought this up, that dynamic one being the thing that is holding back the economy, the Star Sim, the dynamic economy makes sense because the static in dynamic are different, tracking systems.
There are handoffs.
Yeah,
that will have to occur, but also part of it is the people that will be doing all the hooking up and the network engineering to make quantum work with everything, or the people who are working on server meshing right now.
Yeah.
There's a bit of a misnomer, and I can't talk about it without throwing him under the bus just a little bit. But Ray's guide, is theory crafting that, Star Sim is gone,
dead.
Quantum is dead, Star Sim is dead, because it didn't work out, and that's why we're hearing about it from Benoit. And it's no. Quantum was always developed by Turbulent. It was always a joint partnership. Go back to the original video, the original Q&A. It has always been a CIG partnership with Turbulent. And Quantum / Star Sim is a tech thing. And Benoit is the chief technical officer.
Mhm.
That's why he's like him and I mean Paul Reindell too, but because he's always been around, but he is the lead guy that talks about server meshing, because it's always been that way. And when he says that the sim is running in the back, is running in a closed system because they have built the sim and designed the sim, but they haven't hooked it up in a network fashion because that is going to require a lot of work and other things have to be done before they can start making those connections. And
Not to
those
mention,
people have their hands full
we've-
right now.
Not to mention, we've had technically Quantum Star Sim working in the game for a couple years now.
Runs the fuel system. Yeah.
Yeah.
The fuel and repair systems.
Like it's actually already implemented. They're just waiting for some things to make it go large. Which is one of the main things they've said recently is the network system, the resource network system. Like that's kind of like most of what Star Sim is the wide resource network system.
One of the early mentions about like what was holding back Quantum, and Tomato, you may remember this. I'm pretty sure Tree and Naz may remember this as well. Was they were discussing it had to deal also with damage and like the dynamic damage system in armor, which was they needed to set base values for things. So like the cost, like if you look at like a Gladius, CIG needs to know how much, what are the resources that make up that Gladius? What resources do you need to mine and refine to build a Gladius? And what would be the cost of those resources? Because understanding the cost of those resources and adding labor and shipping and anything else like that will factor into that price. So if you want to get a dynamic price for a Gladius, it requires a bunch of different information, which they didn't have. The same goes for like repair, rearm, refueling, all of those sorts of things require those sorts of systems. So you need that base status for all of these different aspects to start coming into play. And that's what they're doing with 3.24. They're basing out all of the different commodities, and probably I wouldn't be surprised if it is mining and other kind of stuff. I haven't looked deep dive into the numbers, but that's kind of what they're doing. They're starting that process.
Setting the starting point for the economy.
Yes, which is why the economy team is doing that, because what they're trying to do is find the base stats, and then run them, and then be like, oh, we need to change this here and this here, so that when they actually get to Star Sim, implementing Star Sim, they can just plug in the numbers they've discovered and then let it run. And then that kind of thing.
And they're also being informed by simulations they're running in office anyway.
Yeah.
Like they have a quantum system running that they're gonna that they've said they can look at. And
they can feed in-game data into the simulation to see what it does.
Yeah.
And the risk reward system is an algorithm also to help. So the economy we're gonna see in 3.24 is a shadow of the amount of information and the working economy they have that they just haven't plugged in yet.
That's an entire different discussion. We actually did an entire channel YouTube did an entire captain's table on that, where we talked about like you're gonna see a huge dip in your profits, y'all. Your profits are gonna go way down in 3.24.
We're just waiting for it. We were talking about that last night when we were doing some salvage run. It's just like it's nice now, but oh boys, this is gonna get hard.
Yeah. The grind is real in 3.24, and it's going to get even more real in 4.0.
No.
I'm going to go to Pyro. You're going to go to Pyro and incur 20,000 credits worth of damage and repairs and fuel costs to earn $4,000.
The risk reward for going to Pyro is, you may incur 20,000 in damages, but the risk of the money.
Yeah, you could bag yourself a 40K bounty, but
or getting the stims or whatever from Stanton, and they need it at Ruin Station. Like,
yeah, but it's going to be that risk,
I mean, honestly, like that's processed food has been like the bane of my existence because I've always wanted to be like the humanitarian hauler, and I want to get the food and water to like the front lines of like frontier systems and things. I've always wanted to run food. Nobody needs food in Stanton. It's everywhere. Pyro. Maybe they need food over there, and maybe we'll be at a premium.
I believe that is going to be the case as well. All right, we got 10 more questions left, and
Oh boy.
oh god,
We gotta put the gas on.
yeah, would certain jump gates require sub/microtransactions to be viable? No.
No.
CIG is not. CIG is not going to gate that.
It's very interesting. Like, I don't know if they had experience with this, but splintering communities like Elite does religiously for some reason is the exact opposite of what CIG wants to do. Like it's almost like they've been hurt personally by splintering games who splinter their communities because they are violently against that.
What's the old meme? Like, I'm not a gatekeeper, I'm a gate opener. You're gonna and you're gonna be. I'm gonna you force you to come in here and sit down and we're gonna learn about like lore for 7 hours. CIG is like, we're not gonna gatekeep and split up the community. We're gonna force you all to come together so you can all fight each other for our amusement. CIG just wants to create the biggest Thunderdome in human history and see what happens.
Just like the amount of you obviously know the amount of strings they've put in for underlying lore to progress the story of Star Citizen, how many conflicts are embedded in the game already.
Yeah, it's there. They're setting it up for people to be like, they want to throw people together, which is I approve of. I didn't do a 45-minute long video on the history of the Jumptown Wars for nothing. Like, I want to see that happen. All right. Yeah. What is CIG going to do with racing and master modes, especially with racing ships that have guns?
They're going to update it.
I couldn't tell you. Space Tomato, any opinion on that?
No, I don't know anything about racing ships or master modes, really.
Does anyone here race, honestly?
No,
sorry.
You all are terrible. Go. You are banned until you complete 5 laps.
I've raced in the past. I just haven't raced since they added racing to the PU. So
it's honestly really.
Yeah.
It's
been a while. Yeah.
They're really fun. They're actually really fun. Kind of makes you feel like an actual the shadow of the career is there because you have to go to different tracks and get different things. It's nice. I really like the Lorville Outskirts. It's my favorite map so far. Anyway, Master Modes is by no means done anywhere. They are very knowledgeable about the limitations of their system, and they know, they've listened to many in the community that have a lot of different things to say, good and bad, about Master Modes. They already knew racing was going to be one of those big questions before they put it into the game. There probably might actually be a racing mode, and maybe that ends up being not with weapons. And then you have weapon-based racing will be SCM racing. Basically, how you have leaderboards in most other games that just have speedrunning, you'll have different criteria for these different leaderboards. So a full-out nav mode race around the Snake Pit will have its own leaderboard. They're not competing for the top spot with SCM Snake mode races. So you'll have just different types of races. It makes it really easy. I'm definitely not in the racing community. I just really like racing. There are a billion people. EchoBit, Smithy Joe Bob also are kind of really into the racing. Maybe they have more to say on that.
I do need to pull together people in the racing community to talk about that, but I've been waiting for some more. All right, next question. Ghost 1800 asks, what is an area in Star Citizen gameplay you feel needs to be filled in? And how much do you think CIG should go about it? Or how do you think they should be about it? Like ships, equipment, gameplay, mechanics, etc. Tomat?
Crafting, cooking.
Everything.
Yeah. There's no one specific thing you can think of?
Data running.
Okay. How would you...
there's a lot of stuff missing from the game. Every part of the game that exists right now needs work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even the stuff that's more finalized, like mining and salvage, also needs work. So, Tree?
Medical gameplay.
Oh, of course. How would you fix it, though? Like, how would you go and fill it in?
By adding NPC rescue squads.
Rescue squads.
Rescue squads, I think, and rescuees. People you have to go and rescue.
Yeah, and NPC rescue missions. The fact that we medical gameplay is entire player to player. There is no PvE content. That's a big problem because everything else, if you're mining, well, that's PvE content. If you're hauling, that is PvE content. If you're salvaging, there is PvE content. Combat can be PvE versus PvP, but there is no the medical profession, which is meant to be one of the most important professions in the game, per Tony Z, and one of the most flexible, is extremely lacking because it's only player to player, and that's a problem. But the other part is there's no NPC interaction in terms of if you're playing solo, you are hosed if you need medical support. Unless someone from Medrunners is online, and even then, it's a long wait, and it shouldn't be a long wait. There's no reason that Stanton shouldn't have an ambulance 5 minutes away from anywhere you're at in Stanton. That would be like saying you're in Dallas, Texas, and you got to wait 30 to 45 minutes for someone to show up when you call 911. No.
So these giant facilities, like these the distribution centers, no way they don't have a first aid. Like there should be an NPC in the building.
Yeah. I would say transport. People transport.
Oh, like people transport?
Yeah, people transport.
Genesis Starliner.
Because like we have the Genesis Starliner and that's it. We need to have
E1?
and the E1.
We don't even have that.
But we don't have that in game.
We don't even have it.
We don't even have either of those in game.
Yeah.
But we need like the starter transport. We need the shuttle mission, shuttle things. We need missions. Like that's one of those that just literally just doesn't exist. It is on paper. It is not even a
freelancer variant.
It's not even
it isn't even a player to. It's barely a player to player thing. It would really just be I pay you to go here, and like you can set up a beacon, but that's so.
But the chances of you just getting shot on site is just so high.
Too high.
Uses it.
Yeah. So like
you can't go to a space station and pick up passengers waiting at the docking terminal. They can't walk onto your ship, and it's automated by the gameplay system that does the. And honestly,
like, it's one of the biggest affronts to the current game because all the spaceports have the dedicated doorway for commercial flights.
It's clear that it wants to be a thing. There's a lot to it, but I think Space Mandarin kind of hit it correctly. Just everything needs work. Everything needs work. Nothing is done. And what's one of the reasons why I'm excited for server meshing is mostly because when it's done, there's not an excuse anymore.
Yep.
CIG can't hide behind we need very basic technical additions. No, you don't. You're done. This is the game. Once static server meshing comes in, it's not going to fundamentally change the game when you turn on dynamic. It's just as cost saving.
There is no 5.0.
Yeah.
We go from 4 to 1.
Yeah. CIG is even moving that direction. So it's all right, let's go. Yeah. I want to see crack the whip on Elliot. Be like, more missions, Elliot. More missions.
I know it's a meme, and I don't know if they'll do this or because they've been bitten by this before. They probably will do a not concrete in any way, but the 2017 road to 1.0, I kind of think that's kind of what they're going to do for CitizenCon again, because that's where we're at. And they're not necessarily road to, but these are the features that we want in before 1.0. But that's kind of what 2017 was as well. Except they had dates on them in 2017. I think it's just going to be basically, here's the giant list of things that we're going to put in before 1.0.
Yeah.
By in 3 years.
So it's a good question there from Knowledge. So server meshing is going to fix the big emptiness of the universe? No. But it will no longer be the excuse as to why there is the giant emptiness of the universe, because once they have that technology in, the servers, the AI should be able to navigate between servers easier, which means that they can start adding more stuff in there. And because of, things we've talked about this already,
after 4.0, they're going to hire Todd Harrow to explain why there's emptiness in the server.
Yeah. 16 times the detail.
No, they're supposed to be boring. That's what space. God dang it.
Use dead. But yeah, we even talked about this. Like they can increase POI because the servers.
And they said way
become
back
smaller.
when they put in caves, like, hey, we just don't have the server overhead to add as many caves. They had like a tenth of the caves they wanted per planet or something.
Yeah. Same with like rivers and that kind of thing.
Yeah, rivers and outposts and like they've been talking a lot about they wanted like a distribution center and then like a cluster of outposts under like perimeter low ways out in drivable distances with like roads connecting them.
They have some of that, but not all of them. You know, there is if you do box missions, you can drop off boxes at little outposts which have roads.
The security posts, but like a little bit farther away. They're thinking like actual like the outposts we had before them around in a sort of community like style.
Yeah, like
not,
suburbs,
not all owned by the same DC.
Where everyone lives, where then they commute to the to the DC to work, you know, kind of thing.
And honestly, like they don't have habs there.
No,
I don't know what their plan is. But we haven't seen any habs in the building. And I want to know where they plan on these people. Either we need to see the traffic of them commuting, or we need to see the habs. Like where are the people who work here coming from?
All right, we've got 6 questions, and I want to make sure before Space Tomato passes out on stream, because it's like 3 o'clock in the morning for him.
I got a 10-hour drive in 5 hours.
Yes.
Oh my god. So.
We'll go through this real quickly. This is a really easy one. UseDead says, will CIG build their own in-house server stack for their game as a cost-saving measure? No, you have no idea how expensive that is. No. That is so expensive.
We talked about how personnel are the biggest expense. That's a lot of personnel.
Yeah.
And a lot of time.
Because you have to hire people
you can't scale that up and down.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of server meshing, is scaling it up and down based off demand.
Yeah.
These 2 questions are kind of connected, so I'm going to sort of connect them. Del Ener asks, CIG's official explanation for the jump point at ATC is to help regulate traffic through the jump point with increasing player and eventually AI counts on shards and potential for them to congregate around one point like a spaceport or a space station. Could we see the same queuing ATC or something similar for these other locations in terms of like landing and stuff?
Absolutely will.
You will.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Isn't that like...
It already
we just
is.
don't have the throughput, but isn't that what they already do?
Yeah, they say please wait for another thing, and then it'll. I mean, we don't have a visual indicator of when they land, though. So,
yeah.
I promise you, as a way to mitigate pad ramming and prevent absolute chaos around space stations and landing zones, with increased player and increased NPC counts, you're going to get routed. You're going to have speed limitations.
Routed, like the landing tunnels we had.
It will be a gamified version of what ATC does in real life.
We're going.
Reduce speed to this. Follow this path.
Landing
it's
tunnels.
One reason I like the tunnels. It made sense.
Yeah, that's what they're coming back. Mark my words.
Like it made sense.
Coming back
because like you can't just like I'm free to go. I'm just gonna go ram into the ATC building.
Can you imagine Area 18 when they have AI trying to fly around and then like upping the server count to like say 200 people and you have Invictus there plus NPCs? Like
everybody complains about ships, getting run into stuff as they exit stations and blowing up and leaving wrecks there. Yep. Imagine if you were able to do whatever the F you want around a massive space station, flying around with all this other NPC traffic, with the chaos that would be there.
Yeah.
And honestly,
it would be an absolute minefield.
It will also move players
regulated.
It will also move players away from the spaceports themselves because we'll have player habs and hubs where we can land away from the space station itself. So why would you try and land a hub if you have a house there, or maybe incentive to get a house there so you can have a kind of more express route somewhere else?
Yeah, especially if you like say they do the like internals where you can like land at your home rather than the spaceport and park your ship inside a high rise in Area 18 and then take off from there. So you don't have to bother with ATC because you could just deal with your own stuff. It's a lot.
It's one of the biggest things I'm waiting for this CitizenCon is an update on building interiors.
Building interiors, procedural generation stuff. All right, we got 3 more questions. Vastin asks, CitizenCon question. CIG has stated that the first day will be longer than last year, and the second is much shorter. Which DJ do you think is going to be all about Squadron 42, and which about Star Citizen? The shorter one is
Second Day Squadron.
Yeah, Squadron is the shorter one. Almost.
Because you'll be like, hey, 6 months from now, you get Squadron. Goodbye. Have a nice night.
Here's a preview. Play the first mission on the floor.
Yeah.
You know.
Second one's probably Squadron.
Yeah.
Ooh, it'd be really cool if they could get an epilogue like onto the store, so they're like a pre-download kind of epilogue.
Prologue or prologue.
Yeah, prologue, and we
Yeah.
can play it at home, so
I-
that like starts the pre-install of all these squadrons. Stuff.
I have always said that I think CIG doing a playable demo of the first mission would go very far because like for players who either bought it or even just for like a free demo for people to play, because maybe there's like a small gated thing, like if you have Star Citizen, you get to play the Squadron 42 demo for free or something, because that would go a long way of building trust where people are like, oh,
I think it'd be
it's
good
a
if
game.
it wasn't the first one. Like for people who own it, I think they should be able to play the first mission.
Mhm.
But for people who don't own it, as a like teaser for it, it shouldn't be the first mission. It should be a picked mission as a sample of the game.
Yeah. I don't know. I think the first mission, based off of my understanding of the first mission, is a perfect like intro to the world. It's very world buildy. So that kind of helps you kind of get the scale and the severity of the universe and stuff like that. But
I just really want to figure out what's going on Archon and what's that giant blue ship that's probably Consolidated Outland.
all right, we got 2 more questions. Del Ener asks, do you foresee long-term repercussions for criminal gameplay in 4.0 with both these monitored border checkpoints at jump points and potential long-term reputation changes?
Not in 4.0.
No, I don't think they'll go that far.
I think it's too soon. I don't think they're ready for that.
They have said like the reputation and hostility that we got in 323 was what they had, and they will be expanding it in 4.0. Like they have said that, but what does that actually go to?
But like long-term?
Yeah, that's
the
the
long-term
question.
part is what I don't think they're ready
No.
for.
I don't. It depends on what you mean by long term. See, like you can get reputation in any organization, in criminal. It's only as long term as you don't work on it, right?
Well,
so if you get to the top of the Nine Tails,
But like
guild,
reputation resets every patch.
isn't that going to go away with server meshing?
That's the question. It doesn't necessarily have to. It could. The question is, will we start to see like your reputation continue forward with 4.0? Because that should also continue with criminality.
Yeah, but even then, even if you have persistent reputation, it's only as persistent as whatever you don't work on. If you are the top guy in Nine Tails, you can work that down and work back to the good side, or the lawful side. Let's not say good, the lawful side of the game. So it's only as long term as you keep it there.
All right. Last question is from Athery5, who asks, those of you who were around for 3.5 with the addition of OCS in the game, how do you feel seeing server meshing finally on the horizon? I think some of the newer players forget that we're seeing the culmination of about a decade of active development. It's crazy hearing months, not years. How about you?
Where's that GIF? It's been 84 years.
Yeah. So like, it's hard to explain to people that the entirety of Star Citizen has been building towards server meshing.
Yep.
Every addition to the game is built around server meshing. Even the game itself, the name of the company, Cloud Imperium Gaming, is because Chris Roberts wanted to use the brand new, exciting technology of 2012, cloud computing, to function, to create an MMO in the using his own kind of space universe. That was the whole spiel. That was the like conceit of the game.
Pitch.
Yeah. There we go.
Is that the roadmap?
That's the server meshing, like
Unofficial road to the dynamic server meshing.
Yeah.
Such a good site. Like, it's an amazing little list.
Yeah.
One of the best community resources out there.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at it, the only things that are missing are player item shard transitions. And then there's like functional internally, entity zones, atlas, and static server meshing. And then the rest of his stuff is like dynamic
Needs
single
static
shard.
for dynamic. Yeah. Like it's all like works for the one. They just need to like validate it.
Yeah. So object container streaming was released in 2017 with 4.0 or 3.0, right?
That's what it says.
Yeah. So, yeah.
And like 2017 was the big, this is 3.0. Here's the road to 4.0.
Yeah. The one that everyone memes on because it's like, oh, 3.1, we're going to have this. And everyone's like, I always, that's a
Wasn't
completely different
farming in 3.1?
Yeah, that's that sort of thing. Chris letting himself get a little bit too excited there.
Yep. The Endeavor was supposed to be out way before now.
But yeah, that's to answer that question effectively. It's weird seeing this culminate because, like, Tomato, I think Naz, you're probably the youngest of us because Tomato, you're just in the 30 club, right?
Yeah.
And Tree, I think Tree's about my age. I think you're a little bit older than me.
I just hit 40 in May.
Yeah, so a couple years older than me. But it's weird that like all of us are the same age in terms of Star Citizen because we all were around when these things were being made. And there'll be somebody who comes in the game who's
Don't
like,
quote the ancient text to me.
I was there when it was written.
Yeah.
Beyond Messiah and I were friends back then.
But like it's weird to know that there will be people who are older than I am who come in and I'm like, I am more experienced than you. And that's a weird statement, you know, you have people who are coming in, you know,
I think it's because we've seen server meshing and we've been like, it's been Fusion for Star Citizen.
Yeah.
So he's been 2 years away. I think the bigger thing for me, the weirdness, is the hangar module basically coming back in 3.24.
Yeah, basically.
I think that's way weirder than 4.0 in a couple months. Like that's because we've been hearing about 4.0 and Pyro for constantly for the past 3 years.
I am going to old man the fuck out when Nyx comes in. I'm gonna go to Delamar.
Oh yeah.
And I'm just gonna sit there and be like, oh, this is Delamar. It's like you don't understand. This is where I lived. This was my home. They took it from me. I'm going home.
What do you mean you've been here before? This is new.
Oh my gosh.
You don't understand. You weren't there for the airlifts when nothing worked and we had to call for help. When you used to get the best bounty hunting in the asteroid belt outside of Delamar.
I jumped from Crusader to Levski.
Yeah.
With a one jump.
Yeah.
No jump points.
Hi, this is my old friend. What was her name?
Recco
Recco Battaglia. Recco. My old friend Recco. She was just added this patch. No, she wasn't. Oh.
That's another thing. Like to not.
Okay, Grandpa. Let's get back to your
mission
room.
givers. We're still waiting on Tessa Bannister. You shush! How dare you speak as thy name?
The ancient ones.
Oh boy.
Yes.
Yeah, mission givers. I hope they talk about mission givers at CitizenCon.
That's gonna be a good one. I really hope that the lore team is at CitizenCon so we can actually get some updates there because they haven't been at a CitizenCon for a while for updates. So I don't even think it was like 2019.
I mean, it's the lore team's job now.
Yeah.
Chop chop.
Anyways, that was the end of the questions. Thank you to Naz, Tree, and Space Tomato for spending this, ungodly amount of time on questions and answers. Like I said at the middle, if you enjoyed this, make sure you hit that follow button, subscribe for more content on YouTube. Hit the like button on YouTube as well. That helps out a lot. And the little bell icon to be notified when these release. And if you're coming over here from the pre-record, thank you for coming over for the pre-record. Again, we're here live at Saturdays at 5 p.m. Eastern. No, 4 p.m. Eastern. 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific on twitch.tv/TheAstroPub, youtube.com/TheAstroPubLive. Make sure you check out all of Space Tomato's content, Space Tomato, Space Tomato 2, Space Tomato Gaming, and then the tomatoes. Is that what it is?
Yeah, the tomatoes. The new one.
And then
wherever Space Tomatoes is sold.
Check out Nova Forge and Tree0311 on Twitch and YouTube for all their fantastic content and the Pathfinder podcast, and eventually the what is it called?
Which one?
The Armchair Generals, Admirals and Generals.
Oh,
let's say
yeah.
that.
We will make a return when
Yes.
Night Cobb returns from deployment.
Oh yeah. And yeah, thank you for watching again. And like I say every time, hope to see you someday in the black.
Cheers.